you got to want this. You with me? You actually have to want this. You have to be willing to prepare the way an attorney prepares for trial. We were discussing again, the purpose of the test. The LSAC, wholly owned by the law schools. At the end of your first year of law school, you can almost envision the process. The information from each of the law schools is shared with the LSAC. So at that time, what they can do is observe what your first year law school class rank is and observe what you came in with. So maybe you came in with a 3.2 GPA and a 153 or a 163 or whatever it is. But there comes a point where the folks who create the test can line these two things up. Capiche? Okay. And for those of you who received the link, I sent you a link from Alex Johnson. Alex Johnson used to be the person, he's now at the University of Virginia, he's a professor of law, but he used to be the head of the LSAC. And if you haven't watched that video, you really need to watch the video, because Alex Johnson is explaining why the test is valid and going over the statistical, the empirical data, establishing that it's valid. Valid meaning the correlation between your LSAT score and your first year law school class rank is by far and away the best correlation, superior to GPA. You put them both together and that's a better correlation yet. But now I want you to think about that for a moment. Will you agree, will you stipulate that what I've just said is accurate? And unless you've seen the video, you're forced to stipulate because you haven't seen it, right? This is really about questioning. This is because someone stands in front of the room does not make them right. It does not make their reasoning rigorous. It does not make their conclusion valid. You must question everything. Do you get it? You question everything except nothing. So, stipulating to that being the case, right, that your LSAT score is more probative of your first year at law school class rank than any other variable, wouldn't it follow from that, if that is true, wouldn't it follow from that that the LSAT must measure something that you need to demonstrate in law school itself? Talk to me. If it's predictive of your first year law school class rank, wouldn't it follow from that premise that it's measuring something you have to demonstrate in law school? If you talk out loud, then I know you're there. So you say, yes, you can say no, you can flip me the bird, but give me something. Okay. Now let's take it the next step. So now the test you're going to take is probative of how you're going to do in law school. Okay. How many people in this room think that they're going to be successful in their first year of law school because they use tricks? Talk to me.
Not half of them.
There you go, yes. Do you get it?
Yes.
Does anybody in this room think that the pathway to success in your first year of law school is by learning tricks? Talk to me.
No.
There you go. Does anyone believe the pathway to success in your first year of law school is to learn shortcuts?
No.
No.
Does anyone believe that the pathway to success in your first year of law school is to use language casually?
No.
Okay. Would you agree with me that if you adopted a strategy for the LSAT that was likely not to be fruitful in law school itself, if you adopted a strategy, you said, here's how I'm going to approach the LSAT, right? And we examined that. And we said, well, but tricks don't work in law school. Shortcuts don't work in law school. And the casual use of our language does not work in law school. What would you infer would be the result or the outcome of how you would do on the LSAT if you proceeded that way?
Not very well.
Do you agree? Talk to me. Okay. Now, if I were to pick up a commercial publication, do you think you might see an LSAT publication? And it wouldn't matter who published it. Do you think you would find reference to tricks?
Yes.
Yes.
Do you think you would find reference to shortcuts?
Yes.
Do you think, with respect, now I characterize something, I've characterized this as the casual use of English language. Now I will give you an example. And you're entitled to say, no, that's not the casual use of the English language. And you're entitled to say, yes, it is. So, if in law school we were to refer to torts is injury in civil law. But if you came into law school and the course was not referred to as torts, if it was referred to as cakes and pastries, would you pause? Talk to me.
Yes.
Yes.
Would you basically say, what the hell am I doing here?
Yes.
Because this is a joke. Yes?
Yes.
Okay. Now I am proceeding by analogy. Not that, of course, they'll ever ask you an analogy on the LSAT. Well, yeah, they will. Where on the LSAT is there a section referred to as logic games?
Nowhere.
Nowhere. There's no section on the test you take that's entitled logic games? Is that correct?
Correct.
Does anybody besides Anna, who is correct, agree that's correct?
Yes.
Yes.
It's not there. What's it called?
Logic.
Right, some of you were even struggling with the name of an entire section. You with me? Now I want you to reflect on this. This section is called analytical reasoning. Now, why would you misname an entire section? Why would you do that? You want to be attorneys, is that correct?
Correct.
Why in God's name? So maybe the next time I'm in court, and we deal a lot with the penal law, maybe what I should do is I should go up to the judge, probably out of the presence of the jury, and I should say to the judge, Your Honor, the penal law, you know, you say that and they want to go to sleep. It's just not a term that warms the heart. Why don't we refer to it as the penis law? I mean, aren't they going to pay more attention if we say that? What would happen to me? But isn't that analogous to what's happening here?
Yes.
Why is an entire section being misnamed? Why? And that question is a question you will now ask for the rest of your life. Every time someone makes a statement, you will say, I want to know why. I want to know your reasoning. And I will compel you to produce your reasoning. And if you cannot produce that reasoning, you will feel foolish. That's a great way to live your life. Anybody want to take a shot? So is it fair to say we've all heard the term logic games? Is that fair to say?
Yes.
Okay, somebody enlighten me. Why? Now I can speculate. Anybody?
Because they're not.
It's a little more friendly of a term.
Friendly, yeah.
Reason.
Yeah. What if analytical reasoning is not friendly, but I sell it to you as friendly? Now what happens?
Misleading.
Misleading.
Yeah. And certainly misleading. Might, by trying to cause something that is august, something that really is kind of challenging, to dumb it down, basically, is what I'm getting, right? wouldn't that place you in great danger of not being prepared for something that's actually quite challenging?
Sure.
Yeah, you bet. Analytical reasoning. Vicki,
Yes.
talk to me about analytical reasoning in the life of a rather successful healthcare attorney. Would it be fair to say that in your job you have to organize information?
Absolutely.
Does everybody expect as an attorney you'll have to organize information?
Yes. Yes.
The test is so valid. That's, again, this is what, if you don't buy into this, right, this is the wrong place. This is such the wrong place. If you do buy into it and you actually begin to understand the test, there's no going back. It's a remarkable test. So you all agree you're going to have to organize information, yes?
Yes.
Do you further agree you're going to have to manage what you organize?
Yes.
Everybody agree?
Yes.
And you notice how I perceived, quiet though you are, we will change that over the course of this program. Do you notice how I proceed from step to step with and only with consensus and actually unanimity? Do you get it?
Yes.
That I'm stopping, I'm inviting you to challenge my reasoning. You with me on this?
Yes.
If you prevail, don't I stop making a fool of myself? If I reason poorly, and you point out a flaw, and you will, I promise you, during the course of this program, you will have multiple opportunities to say, Peter, no, and you'll be right. Tragically, I'll be able to point to you guys and say, I don't think so, and you'll be probably corrected. Everybody agrees you have to manage. And do you further agree you have to interpret what you manage? Stop and think. Yes, talk to me. Well, what if that's what analytical reasoning is? What if analytical reasoning requires you to organize, manage, and interpret information? Would that make it seem connected to law?
Yes.
Well, that's what it is. And you have to organize, manage, and interpret information that you are unfamiliar with. Does analytical reasoning flow from anything anybody had in college? No, it does not. It does not. And so do you get what they've done? They've created something that in order for you to succeed, you have to demonstrate the ability of an attorney. You have to organize, you have to manage, you have to interpret information that is foreign and difficult. What do you think law school is?
Foreign difficult.
And is the information in law school an extension of information of college, or is it new stuff?
Yeah.
Do you get it? It's a great test. It is such a great test. And it is so diminished by the culture out there. So as you prepare for this test, again, I need you all in. You with me? I need you all in. I can't have you halfway in. You got to evangelize. You got to be in, right? Because then there's no going back. I'm 60. I love what I do. I have done what I do for almost 30 years. You with me? If I do get to have a final interview with God, and we're able to speak about what my profession is, that's where I want to keep that conversation. Okay? Because we go anywhere else, I'm in trouble. But we stay on that, and that's where you have two choices. At some point in your life, you can be 60 or not be 60. What would you prefer? So I'm saying is you want to be able to look back and say, I celebrate myself. And that journey, for some of you at least, begins today. And if it's not the journey, don't do it. Right? But there are no logic games on the test. There is no trick. There is no shortcut. The trick, if you will, is to learn how to reason. That's what this whole test is. It's just measuring how you reason. It's not measuring what you memorize. There's no memorization on this test at all. So, This is the really big picture. Meaning, what do they want from you? The law schools want to look at your LSAT score and infer from that you are likely to do well in your first year. So basically, if you were to go to a law school, excuse me, Vicki,
Yeah.
that was Carolyn. Would you be kind enough to
To what?
give her a call? Just in
Okay.
case it's something. Carolyn is our daughter, who just graduated from Navy boot camp. We were on Chicago when was Sunday? No, Friday. Yeah. So it's quite an experience. So if this doesn't work out, and you want to have a fun 7 weeks, Great Lakes, Great Lakes boot camp. Do you get the test is valid? That if you end up in the top 25th percentile in your first year, going on the issue you raised before, if you end up in the top 25th percentile of your first year of law school, don't you think it's foreseeable that when you graduate, you'll be in the top half, let's say, or perhaps the top quartile? In other words, don't you sense that there is a correlation between where you are at the end of your first year in law school and where you are when you graduate from law school? Is that a reasonable inference?
Yes.
A correlation is not cause effect, it's not every individual. But as a group, if you're number 5 in your class in the first year, isn't it likely you'll be in the top 10 percentile when you graduate?
Yes.
And the flip of that is if you're in the bottom quartile in your first year, that would be me, where are you likely to be when you graduate? Yeah, which was actually not me. I squeezed up towards the middle. Now, let's take it one step further. Do you think there's a correlation between your graduating law school class rank and bar passage?
Yes.
Do you think somebody who's in the top 10% is somewhat more likely to be successful on the bar than somebody in the bottom 10%? Does it? And do you get what we're doing now is reasoning? You with me? This is not polemics. It's not rhetoric. It's reasoning. You with me? And reasoning requires engagement. It requires you to contribute your mind. We can't share a brain. You don't want my brain, but you can't have my brain. We can't share a brain. You're going to die. I'm going to die. I'll probably leave first, and I have no grounds upon which to protest. But don't you get it? Life's not a dress rehearsal, so don't do this unless you're celebrating yourself. But if you are celebrating yourself, why in God's name would you do anything else? And why in God's name would you complain that it's hard? It is hard. You bet it's hard. Shouldn't it be hard? Again, in my life, I have tried an awful lot of cases, and I have argued an awful lot of appeals. And the outcome of those cases and the outcome of those appeals were to either participate in a process that led to incarceration or participate in a process that maintained incarceration. And many of those cases involved life in prison. Wouldn't you want me to reason carefully?
Yes.
Even with my 2.68 GPA from Lincoln College, right? And you know, I have a master's degree. And that's very, and it sounds very impressive, doesn't it? But then you're supposed to say, well, yes, so tell me a little bit about it. Okay, now that you've asked. I have a master's degree in international relations, but my specialty is in Yugoslavia. Anybody want to tell me where Yugoslavia is?
On an old map.
On an old map is absolutely correct. Is there a Yugoslavia?
Not anymore.
So I have an advanced degree
Nothing.
with a specialty in a country that does not exist. Life is all about choices. Right? You don't have to be a rocket scientist to be an attorney. You don't have to make good choices your whole life. But you know what? You really do want to embrace this and enjoy it, and because it's too hard. You know what I'm saying? The work is too hard. How much work do you think goes into arguing either in the appellate courts of homicide or trying, you know, how much work do you think? The last case I did was an attempted murder in the
A
trial
lot.
courts. How much preparation do you think goes in?
A lot. You're not sleeping.
And if you did to argue an appeal in New York, unless the rules have changed, the maximum period of time you get to argue an appeal, does anybody know, on a homicide? If you go to the appellate division in Brooklyn, or if you go to the Court of Appeals, do you know what the maximum period of time you can request for oral argument is?
Is it not long?
Yeah, if I've never gotten 20 minutes. When I was doing this, 15 minutes was the most you could ask for, and I never got 15 minutes. How much preparation do you think goes into that 15 minutes?
Weeks.
Yeah. Do you get it? It's all preparation. How many courts, how many cases do you think are won in the Supreme Court on oral argument?
Not very.
Yeah, probably none. How much preparation goes into those oral arguments?
A lot.
And actually, one of the things I want you guys to begin to do, the LSAT is just, it's a measure of your ability to reason this way. So the more you reason this way, the test is, we'll talk about it. When I say the test will fold, I don't mean ever suggest the test is easy. When I suggest the test will fold, I don't mean to suggest you're going to get 100. You're not. You're going to have a plan. You're going to work a plan. You're going to prepare, and then you're going to prepare, and then you're going to prepare. You with me? You're going to be driven. Or don't do it. And you're going to crush the poor bastards who think, oh, I've learned some tricks. That's nice. And I have a plethora of shortcuts. That's nice. And I can't wait to get my arms around that logic game section. It's going to be a long wait. It ain't there, right? So one of the things I'm going to assign is you're going to start listening to Supreme Court oral arguments. How about that? Who do you think is preparing for the LSAT listening to Supreme Court oral arguments?
Not very many.
Yeah, I might even go into none, but yeah, Anya, for sure, not very many. The arguments they're there. I'll show you how to do it and stuff, how to access it. What do you think I do? I drive out to Toro many Sundays. When I drive out to Toro, it's about an hour and 20 minutes. What do you think's playing in the car?
Supreme Court oral arguments?
You bet. You bet. You bet. And what do you think's playing on the way back?
Supreme Court oral arguments.
And the argument I hear on the way out is the same argument I hear on the way back.
Because you don't catch it all the first time.
I'm sorry?
Because it's impossible to catch everything the first time.
It's it? Yes, Anya. And eventually, as Vicky would be able to tell you now, I probably do a pretty decent imitation of Justice Breyer. Because I've heard him so much. It's like you know, they become part of the fabric of who you are. And you're going to imagine. Slowly, you're just going to listen. You're going to listen to something you don't have a clue. I just finished listening to, was it Palm vs. Coca-Cola? I think I've listened to it 4 times. I still don't have, that's not fair. I have a clue, but it's an area of law I know nothing about. That's the point. You with me? The point is get out of your comfort zone and put yourself in harm's way. You cannot succeed without risking failure. You cannot grow without moving outside of yourself. So, you will be preparing in a way distinguishable Actually, I don't believe other folks are preparing for the LSAT because they don't know what the exam wants from them. You will be preparing. And this is the big picture. In other words, what is the test testing for? Okay. Does everyone agree that not everyone's going to be an attorney?
Yes.
Yeah, you with me?
Yes.
And therefore you must risk failure. As I had to risk failure, as Anthony had to risk failure, as Vicky had to risk failure, as to every attorney on the planet had to risk that failure. Do you get it?
Yep.
Doesn't that then imply that there has to be a capacity within you to do this work?
Yes.
If I went out and I decided I'm going to play for the NBA, you with me? I've seen Michael Jordan on tape. I can do that, right? And if I went out and I practiced as many hours that physically I'm capable of practicing on as many days of the week that I'm capable of doing this, and I gave up everything else. I said, the hell with the LSAT, right? I'm going to play for the NBA, right? I'm actually a pretty driven guy. Like when I get in the zone, I'm actually pretty driven because I get in the zone less and less as time passes. But when I'm in that zone, yeah. Anybody think I'm going to make it?
No. Sorry.
Gee, thanks. I mean, you might have couched it a little bit. Would it be fair to say I'm not going to play in the NBA because I do not have the capacity?
Yes.
And down here, I might have the willingness, right? I might. What are the chances that at 60 I have the stamina?
None.
0. It's 0. You know, it's not going to happen. That doesn't prevent me from being foolish, does it? Or unwise? No. Yugoslavia. So there has to be a capacity, right? Now, if you don't possess that capacity, I don't know what I could do. You with me? I mean, that's between you and God. If God has not given you the capacity to do this, how am I going to change that? So understanding what that capacity is really important. And I don't think it's anything fancy. And because I think it doesn't make it right. But I think what the capacity is the ability to see what's not there. I think that's the capacity of being an attorney. In other words, ultimately, aren't you obligated to give your client advice?
Yes.
And when you come down to it, isn't that what you're there for? Now, the advice is at the end of the process. But isn't advice you give something that you need to see in your mind's eye that's not there in the beginning of this process?
Yes.
Yes? In other words, isn't it distinguishable from memorizing, I don't know, that Albany is the capital of New York? Can you just memorize Albany is the capital of New York?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. And can pretty much, I mean, short of having a learning disability, couldn't pretty much all of us do that.
Yes. Yeah.
But are all of us capable of listening to the same information and rendering useful advice? Are we all capable of that?
No.
Yeah, I don't think we are. Edward has been a New York Met fan since 1962. Every year since 1962, Edward has predicted that the New York Mets will win the World Series. Right? Now, he's been right twice. What do you think Edward said on each of those 2 occasions?
I told you.
I told you so. It's probably the capacity, in other words, to move forward with your heart is in no way, manner, shape, or form a bad thing to do. But it's not a good thing to do for an attorney giving advice to a client. So Edward is oblivious to, I believe in 1962, the Mets had 4 20-game losers. That's hard. That's really hard to get 4 pitchers, each of whom lose 20 games. I think that was the case. I was 7. I don't really remember. He doesn't care about the evidence because he cares that his team win. Imagine doing that for your client. Imagine You're just rooting for your client and the evidence be damned. But you get, all of us are a mix, right? We're a mix of how we reason, and I'll tell you what, give a summation someday and you will feel both. It will be driven by reason, but it will be accompanied by passion, or it should not be given. So, at some point in this, you're going to need to take an honest inventory and say, do I have the capacity to do this? Now, my experience, whatever that worth is, the vast majority of people have the capacity to do it because it's common sense. And that's what law is. Law is common sense. Law is, I grew up in Highbridge, in the Bronx. And you kind of just knew where not to go. Or you weren't going to get out. You kind of, but there's an intelligence to that. There's an intelligence of understanding implicitly what to avoid and what to embrace. And I do think that's what this capacity. So I don't think there's anything fancy about it. It may take some changing because it's not memorization. You with me? So you could be sitting here with a 3.7 GPA and things have come to you easily in life. You've been successful. You may have a business and be successful in your business. You may have come out of school with a 3.7 GPA and you're accustomed to success and you're impatient with the process that leads to success because it's been natural for you. This may be a bumpy ride because for many, many, many people, this is not fast. The learning of this, the bending your mind around what the test wants, can be transformational. So the first thing is, do you have the capacity? And the test is measuring that. How does it measure that? Well, if I ask you to strengthen an argument, can you memorize the answer? So when I say strengthen an argument, now I can describe to you what that means. You can only strengthen an argument in one of three ways. Have you ever thought about how you strengthen an argument? Have you ever just sat down at the dinner table and said, let's discuss, how do you strengthen an argument? Have you ever had that conversation? Don't you think it would be valuable if you want to be a lawyer? Unless you want to say to your client, now, Ms. Client, I don't know how to strengthen an argument. How about that? Sound like it's going to work?
Not having a retainer.
No. Well, do you think it's an accident or a coincidence that on the LSAT you're going to be asked about 12 times to either weaken or strengthen an argument? Do you think that's an accident? Or do you think that's one way to measure a person's capacity to reason this way? The test rocks. It absolutely rocks. When you understand this test, when you can really accept it and wrap your arms around it, it's very cool. So how do you strengthen an argument? Well, how about this? How about you're on trial? Okay, and you want to strengthen your direct case. Now, if I have a piece of evidence that's stated, that is explicit, right? So maybe I have a watch, and maybe the watch is stopped, and maybe I want to, now remember, there's a standard of proof and an adversary, right? You with me? No matter what I do in my life, there's a standard of proof and an adversary. Not school. You're not sitting in a political science class where the person in the front of the room has a political, philosophical, socioeconomic agenda and is inculcating you in that agenda. Many of you, I suspect, have far more experienced inculcation than education. That will stop, or you will not succeed. So, if I have a watch and I want to establish that the time on the watch is broken, right? But I want to establish that the time on the watch is accurate. That's what I have. If I want to strengthen that fact, how about if I go to a watch repair person. I have the expert watch repair person look at the watch, and the experts say to me, I can testify that that watch was working correctly at the time it was broken. Would that not strengthen my argument?
Yes.
Yes.
So what you have done is you've taken a fact that was part of your original argument, and you've made that fact stronger. Everybody agree? Okay, that's one way. Second way, what if I'm offering that watch to prove a crime was committed? Right? Okay. Well, what if during my preparation, God forbid, I find a witness that I didn't know existed, right? Wasn't part of my original case, and that witness can testify to the circumstances surrounding the crime in a manner consistent with the circumstances that I'm going to be describing to the jury. Didn't I just strengthen my case?
Yes.
But in a different way, right? Here's a fact that comes from out of the blue. I didn't know it was there. The watch I knew was there. This comes from out of the blue. Well, it's going to be on the LSAT. When you're asked to strengthen, you'll either take a premise, right? And one of the answer choices will make that premise stronger. Or something will come from out of the blue. But the thing that comes from out of the blue causes the conclusion to be more likely. That's the second way. The third way, and final way, is if I conclude that the crime was committed in New Rochelle, do I strengthen the argument when I can offer evidence that the crime was not committed in White Plains? Have I strengthened? My argument is it took place in New Rochelle, right? I now go to the jury and I say, and here is absolute proof certain it was not committed in White Plains. Have I strengthened my conclusion? We have a couple of no's.
If you're strengthening, it's not by much. It's still
Well, now that's a great comment. So your comment is I strengthen my conclusion, comma,
not by very much.
but not by very much. Did I say I had to strengthen it a lot?
No.
In fact, I seem to recall I said, did I strengthen the conclusion?
Yes.
So the answer to that question is what?
Yes, you strengthened it. I didn't touch.
I didn't ask for
Okay, okay.
your characterization of how
Yes, you strengthened the
much.
argument.
Now, yes, now here's why. Now think about it. As you sit here now, you say you don't even know if that strengthens, no. But you say, crap, I don't know if that strengthens the conclusion or not. How cool is that? How cool is that? The principle is, right, that when you reach a conclusion, when you remove any other conclusion inconsistent with the one you've reached, you've made the one you've reached somewhat more likely to be valid. Doesn't that kind of make sense? If I say, so that's it. There are only three ways they can weaken or strengthen an argument, and it's going to be on your test. Tell me there's some trick to this. Where's the trick? Tell me there's some shortcut to this. There is no shortcut to this. And I can't wait to get to that logic game section. And I know what we should do. You see, what we should do is, I probably could score pretty well on the test. So I really think what we should do here is everybody should just get to rub my head, right? That what you're going to do, like I shouldn't, whether I communicate well or not is, who cares, right? What you should care about is the LSAT score I got in 1983. That's what should matter. Because then you can just rub my head and we'll share a brain. And oh gosh, we can't share a brain. So if you're doing this, right, and what you've bought into is I just want someone who claims to have, I have no clue whether they have or don't have, I just want somebody in the front of the room who claims to have a 170. Because then I'm just, it's like Spock in Star Trek. You know, it's like, It's not going to matter. That person's working off of script written by whoever came up with logic games. You're getting the script. You're not getting the 170. That person can't give you what they have because it's their brain. If they have a 170. You are going to be competing with people who think they are in a class and are not in a class, as I understand the word class. You will be competing with people who think they are prepared and are not prepared, as I understand the word prepared. Sort of like going into trial against a pro se defendant, meaning a defendant who is representing himself or herself. Man, that's a good day. That's a good day for me. A very good day. So, I need you all in. You get it. The test, it's legit. You're going to have the willingness to work very hard. Not everybody has it. So, I mean, my view of this is most people have the capacity. I mean, I don't know, a super majority, I suspect, have the capacity to be an attorney. A minority have the willingness. You with me? So you could sit there now, and God has given you sufficient gifts to do this. But God is not going to motivate you. God is not going to. You're going to have to seek the best within yourself. You're going to have to seek within you the motivation to work harder here than you've ever worked in college. You with me? Again, with respect, for the most part, college is a joke. This is not. This is for the rest of your life. Your position will be challenged. When you say red, someone else will say blue. And the person saying blue is paid to oppose you. You with me? So this is no longer you get off by saying, I can make a really good case that global warming is man-made. Oh, okay, that's nice. You can make a really good case. Well, let's find out what that means and let me begin questioning you and your premises. And then, since you take that position, you are obligated to be able to disprove the alternative. It's no longer now I can just say red. When you say red, haven't you said not green? Not blue? Yes?
Yes.
That's the world you're going into. And it is hellish if this is not your passion. It is, again, I can't imagine doing anything else. So the willingness to work doesn't mean your life stops, it doesn't, right? But you got to be all in. So, this is not how many hours a day do I do this. You prepare, and you prepare consistent with the constraints you have in your life. Preparing for me, I prepare for this class when I drive out to Toro and I'm listening to the Supreme Court. Because my mind, the brain's a muscle. Am I missing something, or isn't the brain a muscle? Okay, well, when you go to a gym and you work out, doesn't your muscle become taut?
Yes.
Doesn't the muscle mass increase? So what do you think happens when, I've only got one muscle in my body worth a damn. Right? I'll take it. I will take it. Do you get that's what happens? That it becomes, and imagine doing this, and I've been doing it for 30 years, right? I mean, how in God's name do you not get less done? For men, that's the best we can hope for. Oh, and happy Father's Day. Or happy Father's Day to your father. And to your grandfather. Don't mean to leave him out. And the rest of them.
Same to you.
And to, oh, thank you.
Maybe that's why your daughter's calling you.
Was that why?
That's correct. Good inference.
Okay, so you get it, right? You got to have the will. You got to be patient. If you're not ready to take this test in September, what do?
Don't take it yet.
Crying is good. Crying is good. What do?
Put it on the project.
Yeah. You keep your powder dry. You take an adjournment. You think I've ever had to take an adjournment?
Yes.
You think it's fun to take adjournments?
No.
You with me? You
Yes.
must approach this the way you will approach the practice of law. You will be evidence driven. You understand that?
Yes.
You will not give me your conclusion. You shouldn't have to give me. You know, when you give someone your conclusion, you've given yourself away. If your conclusion is so bloody valid, why do you have to give it to me at all? Why aren't you able just to give me your reasoning and then be silent? If your conclusion flows ineluctably from the evidence you have proffered, I don't need your conclusion. Because it follows ineluctably. Because you have reasoned well. If you haven't reasoned well, I'm going to attack. Then go to therapy. I'm going to attack. So this thing about conclusions, I don't care which conclusions. Give me your reasoning and allow me to form the conclusion that should flow from that reasoning. And if the conclusion that I draw is not the conclusion you have drawn, well, then we have to have a discussion. It's a discipline. So, the willingness to work means the willingness to wait. You must wait for the evidence. The evidence will be clear. The final 2 classes, long time off though that is, right? Because you're talking about September 13th and September 20th. On those Saturdays here, and from the Sunday section will be the last 2 Sundays that we're here in August. But you'll sit for the 2 most recently released exams, one of which will be the June exam that was given on Monday. And you will produce evidence. Does everybody agree that seems to be valid? I mean, sit for the 2 most recently released exam, under test, you'll be here, I'll be here. You're not going to take it at home. You're going to take it with 5 sections. You're going to take it as close to the real conditions as we can create. So the test is designed so you have to work. The test is designed so it's not an extension of college. There is no way to avoid a willingness to work because the material is not, it's not college. And the stamina is, how long is the test? Did you say forever? Well, yes, and that's a characterization. But more specifically, how long are you basically going to be in the room?
3.5, 4 hours.
Yeah, I'd say 4 hours. Right, the test is going to be about 3 hours and 45 minutes, something like that. But you're going to be in the room for 4 hours. Okay. If you're not conditioned, doesn't that mean your brain has to operate at a pretty intense level for that period of time?
Yes.
You guys see it? And if your brain is not conditioned to do that, what's going to happen?
Fail.
Yeah, you're going to get tired, right? Everybody agree?
Yes.
Have you ever heard someone say, I'm God's gift to everything except standardized tests? Have you ever heard that?
Yes.
Okay, that is not what you put on your personal statement applying to law school, right? That is not what you put there. What is the bar exam?
Standardized test.
A standardized test. And if you can't pass this standardized test, what might you not pass?
The bar.
And if you complain that God has given you every other gift except the standardized test gift, what am I going to infer about God's plans for you in law?
You're not going into law.
So just stop. There's so much intelligence behind this test. It's Adam Smith's guiding hand. There is so much intelligence behind this, which never gets discussed. So, would you agree? Does anybody know how long the bar exam is? Well, I believe 2 days if you just want one state. 2 days, and pretty much all day, each day, right? If you don't have stamina, are you going to pass the bar exam?
No.
Oh. So wouldn't it be helpful to put you in harm's way before we send you into the bar? Do you see what's going on? Everyone who works for the LSAC owes their job to the law schools. The law schools need a business tool to decide who do we admit and who do we not admit. Nothing is perfect, that's not the issue here. But there is nothing more probative than your LSAT score. Doesn't this kind of make sense, that this is the big picture? And this is just distilled into this test. But the test is measuring your ability to participate and practice legal reasoning, to weaken, to strengthen, to conclude. Isn't the advice you give your client the conclusion you have reached?
Yes.
So wouldn't you want to test a test maker's ability essentially to give advice, meaning to draw conclusions? Yes? How about, I might want to know if you can identify flaws in someone's argument. Now in law, there are rules. So rules in New York State are governed by the CPLR in civil practice, and the CPLR requires you to do certain things in certain time frames. So you have to bring a medical malpractice case in a certain period of time. If you're going to serve a party, you have to follow a certain process. Now, if you have a really compelling case, it's a winner, but you fail to comply with process, what happens to your case, theoretically? It gets tossed. It gets tossed. It doesn't matter how compelling your argument was. It gets tossed because it's flawed. So doesn't it kind of make sense that on the LSAT you're going to be asked to identify flaws in an argument about 12 times? About 12% of the test. Doesn't it kind of make sense? And that flaws are distinguishable from weakening. You're not weakening. You don't weaken a flawed argument. You simply say, here's why it's flawed, and that will be the answer. How about assumptions, which is we chatted about earlier? When you draw the conclusion that Philadelphia is the best city to live in, but you have drawn that conclusion, haven't you just said that no other city is the best city? Haven't you just said that?
Yes.
Ah, and that's where you're going to go in life. So you're going to be, maybe born and raised in Philadelphia, and you're going to say Philadelphia is the best city, and I'm a lawyer, so I'm going to be a jerk. And I'm going to say, well, may I inquire? Now you've taken the position that Philadelphia is the best city. Would you agree with me there cannot be two best cities? Would you agree with that?
Yes.
Doesn't best mean there is no equal?
Yes.
Now, let's go and visit Cincinnati, and Dayton, and New York, and Tallahassee, and Austin, and we'll see about it. Do you understand when you make an affirmative statement, you have to defeat any statement that would otherwise be valid if true? If any other city could be the best city, you've got to disprove it. So here, this is where you go. So this is the test. So aren't those all assumptions? When you say Philadelphia is the best city in the country, haven't you assumed there is no other city that can be considered the best city? And when you charge someone with a crime, haven't you assumed that nobody else committed that crime? Capiche? So, you just see the word assumption on the LSAT, and we'll spend forever talking about this stuff. And, it may be a necessary assumption. It may be a sufficient assumption. But when you see it on the LSAT, it's dry. It's got no context. It's got no texture. It's got no life. It's just a word on the exam. But when you practice law, it's vibrant. It's essential that if I have missed assumptions, I have participated in putting in jail people who don't belong in jail. How critical is that? It's pretty critical. And there it is on your test. Those questions, to weaken, strengthen, assume, conclude, and flaw, represent about 40% of the test. Does that kind of make sense? Yeah, you bet it does. Now, if I start talking about principles, you think you're going to have to deal with principles in law?
Yes.
Every law is a principle. Every law, every statute is a principle. So these are things that are not familiar, that are not common to college, that are pretty difficult, not overwhelmingly, but pretty difficult, but definitely foreign. So do you get, we're here at what time in the morning? Talk to me.
9 a.m.
Okay, now tell me why. Why are we here at 9 o'clock in the morning? And we're here at 9 o'clock in the morning just because that's the most convenient time for me. I mean, I can hold the class whenever I want to hold the class.
That's the time of the LSAT.
It's the time of the LSAT. Does everybody understand why you're here at 9 o'clock in the morning? What time will the LSAT be administered?
9 o'clock.
And is it fair to say that the LSAT is going to be administered on a weekend?
Yes.
Yes.
And we are here on a what?
Weekend.
Weekend.
And is it fair to say that the LSAT is going to be, say you're going to be in the room for 4 hours, is that fair to say?
Yes.
And how long will we be in this room?
5.
And do you understand why?
Yes.
You with me, right? This is legal reasoning. There's nothing fancy about this. Now, it's the law school admissions test, is that correct? So you tell me what degree the person at the front of the room should possess. You are preparing for the law school admissions test, right? Shall I be a chemist?
No.
And do you think you're going to see anybody other than a lawyer up here teaching?
No.
No. And do you understand why?
Yeah.
Oh. Now, how about the methods? If it's the law school admissions test and it's measuring your ability to function this way, and it's predicting your success in the first year of law school, might it not make sense to use the methods you use in law school to prepare for the LSAT? Talk to me.
Yes.
So, I'm fine. Anybody want to use tricks?
No.
But you understand that what is implied from that statement is additional work because you're not using tricks. Yes? Anybody want to use shortcuts? Anybody want to utter logic games? Why? How about this? Do you think when you're in law school, you're going to see that?
Yes. Yes.
How about on the first day? Very likely. Now, they may change the, sometimes it's Iraq, sometimes it's ILAC, it doesn't matter. But do you get that that's going to go up on the board the first week of law school, probably in each of your classes? Because that's how we reason. What's the issue? What is the rule that governs the issue? The analysis involves, in the real world, the analysis involves additional facts, but you're applying the issue to the law. And the conclusion is what should flow logically from your mind. And that's how the LSAT is created. I'm sure every question on this test is created by a group of people who are saying, okay, well, each and every LSAT tests for the same capacity. So don't you think you can find any LSAT where you're not asked to weaken arguments? Do you think you can find any LSAT where you're not asked to strengthen, weaken, assume, conclude, infer, or identify principles, identify pointed issues? Do you think there's any LSAT on the planet that doesn't test those same things? And there's no memorization. Memorization can be made hard because it's obscure. Reasoning is not obscure. Or as if I were to ask you, you're giving a test in college, and you want to produce a 90. I want to produce a 90. And we'll say the class is in, we'll say international relations, right? But I want to produce 90 on the test. Well, question number 4 may be, the country immediately to the south of the United States, contiguous with the United States, that country is. You guys want to take a shot at that country?
Mexico.
Mexico. Would you agree that's going to produce, that I'm trying to produce outcomes, right, as a teacher? Would you agree that's going to produce an overwhelmingly positive outcome? Yes?
Yes.
Okay. But now I don't want to produce an overwhelmingly positive outcome. So question number 17 says the country of Zaire is now called what? Well, to be more precise, the country formerly called Zaire is now called what? Anybody would anybody want to jump out of that one?
DR Congo.
I'm sorry?
DR Congo.
Yes. Yes. You have an edge, though. but do you get that the way you produce GPA, if you will, not exclusively, but do you get is the more remote something is, that means you had this, we gave you the same book, right? But you just spent more and more time memorizing everything in that book. Okay, the law's not memorization, right? So there is none of that on the LSAT. You're gonna receive the same test that everybody before you. You're gonna receive the same test I received, basically, in 1983. How cool is that? Because it doesn't change. Reasoning is natural law. Reasoning doesn't change. And you can't, I don't know how you can do great things without reasoning. We're humans. We are humans. We are the only creatures that we are aware of that have the capacity to reason. Lawyers reason for a living. Works for me. So we agree that the time of the class makes sense, the day on which the class is held makes sense. Having a lawyer in front of the room makes sense. That the methods, and we're going to go into this in depth, the methods will be IRAC, you will be briefing the LSAT. You with me? Who else is briefing the LSAT? What is brief? What do you think you're going to do in your first year of law school?
Brief a lot.
And don't you have to go slow as a snail when you brief? And so you're going to say to me, well, I don't have this much time on the test. And I'm going to say, I agree. You'll never have enough time on the test until you learn how to read in a fundamentally different way. And you'll never learn how to read in a fundamentally different way until you slow down. Then you will not need to slow down. So you will brief. You will issue spot, which is what you do in law school. So you get why we're here. Does it make sense? Talk to me.
Yes.
Because there's nobody overseeing. You see, I don't have an approval. There's no state body that says, no, Peter, this makes sense. There's no American Bar Association, right? There's no ABA that says, Peter, this makes sense. What in God's name would the ABA do if they had to accredit these? The logic games and the tricks and the shortcuts and the complete absence of any empirical data as to what outcomes are. So, it's probably a decent stopping point. Have I at least begun to make the case that, this is actually important stuff? It's good. It's a great test. Yes?
Yes.
Okay. Well then, looks like one of those 10-minute break times, that you will be manipulated unless and until you become educated. Do you understand that? You are being manipulated as you sit here. Not by me, but you are being manipulated as you sit here now, and you are manipulated by the use of language. How does it feel? Because I'm telling you, you're being manipulated. How does that feel? Do you feel good about yourself? Let me take a turn. I want somebody to tell me if this is, you tell me what? Social justice. So shall this be a hug moment? Shall we all hug? Is there anyone in this room who opposes social justice? Now, I want you to tell me if you do. It's all right. Is no one? No one opposes social justice. Is that correct? Oh my. Now, if I may be so bold, now that I have your position, that each and every person in this room is a proponent of social justice. Is that correct? Okay. Could somebody in this room tell me what it is? Or you are just a proponent of something that you don't know what it is? Now, what is social justice? Can you give me an example of something that is socially just and how we achieve it? So, now wait a minute. So if I say to you, but if you oppose me, you oppose social justice, what position are you now in? What position are you now in? What does it mean? Could capitalism be socially just? Could capitalism be socially just? Talk to me. Talk to me.
Yes.
Could it be socially just?
Yes.
Could socialism be socially just? Could it be?
Yes.
Could authoritarianism be socially just? Could it be? Could it be? It's a stretch, you say, but if you had a benign monarch, could the benign monarch practice social justice? Could it be?
Sure.
Well, if I just stick with capitalism and socialism, would you agree with me that those two things are not, that they conflict with one another? Would you agree with that?
Yes.
Then how can they both be social, examples of what could be socially just? Anya?
When you had asked or inquired what socially just meant, nobody responded, yet everybody was agreeing with you further onwards.
Yes, that is my point. Hello? Do you understand that if I want to manipulate you to agree with me, you understand that, I will cause you to believe that I am a proponent of social justice, and that what I say is socially just. And then I'll do whatever I damn well want to do. But I will cloak it in social justice. Is immigration socially just?
Don't know.
Is immigration socially just? Now, talk to me.
It could be.
Could be. Does it have to be?
No.
Well, now, what the hell is it? So what I'm getting at is becoming an attorney is to inquire, is to be critical, is to understand that language is used to manipulate. On all sides. This is not one side or the other. How about the word progressive? Word progressive, is that a positive word, a negative word, or a neutral word? What is, if you don't think about it, if I say progressive, what do you come away with? A positive? Okay. Now let me modify the word cancer with the word progressive.
Negative.
What happened to the word?
Negative.
Well, how did that happen? Everybody agreed it was positive. How about if I modify the word tax with the word progressive? Now, if I call a tax progressive, what do I wish you to infer about the tax? It's a good tax. It's a progressive tax. But what does the word progressive mean when you modify the word tax with it? Ever increasing. Not a good tax? Well, it depends on your view. Do you get you're coming into a different world? And there's no going back. If you get this, there is no going back. You can. So, That was it. I need to get on my social justice rant.
Are you going to define social justice, or are we still not going to know?
I have no idea what it means. I'm not the one who took the position that I favor it. I don't have a clue what it means. I will be delighted if someone can define it for me and if I can inquire of that person. And that's going to be a rocky ride for whoever I'm inquiring of. We use terms that are imprecise, that call out for dissection and definition. But that's, that's troublesome, because then we have to be precise, and it can be challenging to be precise.
Hi everyone, my name is Kirsten. I'm going into my 3rd year right here at Pace Law School. I took Peter's class before coming to law school. I actually took Kaplan before I took Peter's class, so it didn't work out for me with Kaplan, but I took 2 cycles with Peter, and I honestly owe him everything, because my LSAT score was the one thing that was lacking in my resume and my application, and I didn't know if law school was going to work out for me. I took 2 years off before college and law school. I worked, which is not what I wanted to do. I wanted to go right from college to law school, but again, with the LSATs, it didn't work out. So I figured working, saving some money, and studying would be the best approach. So what I did was I started working, and I found out about Peter's class through a family friend, and I was like, all right, well, here goes nothing, because I felt like a failure after I had taken Kaplan because it didn't work out. I actually didn't take the LSAT until I came to Peter's class, but even my practice scores were terrible, so I didn't feel ready. So what I did was I came here, I took 1 cycle, and I still wasn't ready, but I felt that I was improving, so I was like, all right, I'll give it another chance. And after taking a 2nd cycle, I felt ready enough to take the exam, and I took it, which was scary enough in and of itself, just driving there, because I didn't know how it was gonna work out, and I felt like this one test was really gonna make or break my career. So I took it, and I did well enough to get into law school. I called Peter right away as soon as I got my score that day, and I was very excited about that. So I applied. I was like, well, here goes nothing. I have half a chance of getting in now, because everything else was okay. It was just my score. So I ended up getting into 4 out of the 5 schools that I applied to, and Pace was my first choice, so I came here. And I'm loving it. At Pace, I'm able to do everything that I want to do. I've been on moot court, I'm on a journal, I'm in so many different clubs and organizations, and I really feel that without Peter's help and the rest of the instructors' help, that I wouldn't be here. And so for that, I really owe him a lot, and that's why I'm here, to really encourage you to believe in what he says, use the strategies, as maybe silly as they seem. Even the briefing on the reading comp, I thought, oh really, I have to brief? I can read, but it really helps, because when you go back, you'll be like, okay, what did I read? Especially when you're under a time crunch and you're nervous, you can go back and be like, all right, this is what this passage was about, and really be like present and active in the strategies and the approaches that Peter and the rest teach, because I didn't believe in it at first, but man, do I believe in it now, because this is where I am today, and I couldn't be happier. Congratulations. Thank you. So, does anyone have any questions? Sure.
How did you know that you weren't ready to take the test after you completed the Kaplan? Like what was it, anxiety, or did you just really not?
It was a mixture of everything. My practice scores that we took over and over again were definitely not up to par. I wouldn't have been able to get in anywhere with the scores that I was getting. So I didn't feel ready. I was anxious about the test. Quite frankly, even when I took Peter's class, even though I was improving score-wise, I was still anxious and nervous. I didn't want to go to the test that day at all, but my mom pushed me. She's like, get in the car and just go. What's the worst that can happen? I was like, well, I don't want to have a bad score on my record. She's like, just take it once, see how it is, because I didn't take the actual exam, so I didn't know what that actual test day experience was like. So, I mean, I don't think you'll ever actually feel ready, but I think as you improve and you get more comfortable with the process and the information and the questions, that you'll know when it's time. Sure. Anyone else? Yes.
But what, do you find that the LSAT has really anything to do with law school?
Here it is, ready? The LSAT to this day for me is a foreign thing that I will never understand. But what I did gain from the whole LSAT and studying experience was just that. It was something that I had to study for. I worked day in and day out for. And now being in law school, I realize that that is exactly what you have to do in law school. Yes, the material you can study for, you can understand it. It's something that is more tangible, but the process in it, you know, the studying, the reasoning, all that stuff that you are learning, no matter how abstract it really is what is relevant in law school and what is very useful. Yes.
How was Kaplan different from this course? Like, was it like a huge difference?
Yes, it is a huge difference. The strategies that you learn here and the approaches to the questions are extremely different. I felt that with Kaplan, I felt more of a number. It's this homework guarantee that if you do all the stuff you're supposed to do, you're going to guarantee a better score. That didn't work for me. With Peter, it's more personal. I feel that he teaches you what you need to know and the best way to go about it. And that's how I feel. I think Kaplan can work for some people. It has, obviously, or else they wouldn't be in business. I think the Princeton Review and all that can work, but it didn't work for me. So that's how I think Peter's class is different in the actual strategies and the approaches to the actual questions. That worked better for me. Yes?
How many hours outside of the course did you dedicate to study?
So I worked a 9-to-5 job, full time. So on lunch breaks, I would study. Right after my job, I would study. So probably a night, probably 3 to 4 hours a night, realistically. It's a lot, but it's worth it. And it's like the best job you'll ever have. And you can use the degree for so many things. So I know it's like, it could be frustrating sitting here and it can be really demanding sitting here and you could be like, why am I here? But this was honestly the best move that I ever made. Does anyone else have any more questions? Okay. Thank you.
You're just going to be more successful if you're motivated. No two ways about it. Has anybody in here heard that that law school is too expensive, that there are no jobs, and that there is no future? Okay?
Yes, but
So shall we all go home now? Now, may I inquire? May I inquire?
yes.
Yeah. So let's take these issues one at a time. In order to establish the expense of law school, would you not have to take into account what, if any, scholarship money you were awarded?
Yes.
Does everybody agree?
Yes.
Again, I don't wish to proceed until everybody agrees. And do you get, that's how you get, you don't get a jury, but do you get, if you're going to try criminal cases, you have to get 12 people to agree. You've never met them before, may never meet them again. You've got to get them to agree, and the standard you're held to is that, not just agree casually, agree that you have proven something beyond a reasonable doubt. Not the easiest thing to do in the world, would you? Make sense? So that's what this world is about, right? It's about, you know what? I am not the holder of all knowledge. You have as much knowledge as I have. I have more experience, for sure, in the law, right? I'm smarter than anybody in this room. I'm just more experienced because, well, I'm 60 and thankfully you're not. Okay. So we all agree that the expense of law school cannot be calculated until we determine if we have scholarship money. Is that correct?
Correct.
And is it your experience that scholarship money, generally that goes to a slight percentage of people and they're really, really smart?
No.
Well, that's good. Does anybody...
But not necessarily.
No, you're right. How about this? What is a 70? If you're in college and you get a 70, what letter grade have you received?
C minus.
Okay, C minus. Everybody agree? And how's your self-esteem doing? Not so good? You a little bit pissed off?
Sweep it up.
Okay. And so when you go to colleges, it's fair to say you approach an exam to avoid a 70.
Yes.
Does everybody agree with me? I know Anya does. But do the rest of you agree with that?
Yes.
So you don't go into college and take an exam in political science and say, my conscious objective is to get a 70. Is that fair to say?
Yes.
And is it further fair to say that your conscious objective is not to get a 75?
Yes.
But everybody agrees that our conscious objective is to get money to go to law school.
Yes.
Yes.
Well, what if by getting, well now, if you're a 70 in college, is there a percentile ranking that goes with that?
Yes.
But would you know it? In other words, would you know, say you had straight 70s, right? Would you know if you were in the top 10% to top 20% to top, I don't know that you would know that, right?
You'd have to inquire.
Okay, but where do you think you'd be? If you got straight 70s,
Probably bottom.
what percent do you think you'd be in? Just give a shout out a percent you think. Who thinks if you had straight 70s, you would be in the top half of your class?
No.
Do you get that you have to have a plan going in there?
Yes.
And do you get that your plan, let me break the news to you now, your plan is not going to be to get 100.
Yes.
You are not going to get 100. Okay? Exhale. Right. You're not going to get 100. What you're going to do is come up with a plan that will get you into the law school that you're capable of getting into. Maybe not the law school you want to get into. Would you like to get into Yale?
No?
Yes.
Oh, come on. Just to get the thing in the mail saying you've been accepted to Yale. John, you know. So it's managing expectations and it's preparing to improve those expectations. You with me? Everybody comes in here, you're at a certain point. And the goal is not to stay at that point. In the context of, there is a ceiling for everyone in this room, you know, including me. And accepting that is just huge, right? And you figure out where it is through preparation. You figure out, can I get a 70? Can I get an 80? Can I get a 90? Through the preparation you do. If you don't do the preparation, you're not going to know. So what I want to do is, the disconnect here is, let's stipulate that if you had 70 average in college, let's stipulate you would be in the bottom half of the class. Does everybody agree with that?
Yes.
And substantially, like almost certainly not in the 40th percentile, almost certainly you'd be in the vicinity of the 25th percentile going down. Does everybody agree with that? So let's think about, remember what the goal is, right? The goal is to get money. See, when you take the bar exam, the goal is simply to pass the bar exam. I am comforted in my own belief that I have the lowest passing bar score in recorded history. Now, they don't release the score, so I don't know that. But nobody cares what score you get unless you fail the bar, because they don't tell you your score if you pass the bar, right? So the bar exam is you have an objective, right? The objective is not to get 100. I mean, you can, but the objective is to pass, right? Then it doesn't matter. Okay.
How will you know you have the lowest if they don't tell you?
I'm sorry?
How will you know you have the lowest if they don't tell you?
Well, they tell you if you don't pass. Then they tell you, because they're evil, that you have a 68.5, and you know if you had a 69, you would have passed. So they tell you when, but if you pass, you just pass. It's a pass-fail. With a pass, you get a P, and the fail, you get an actual score. Yes. And then you go to the other bar. So here's the deal. Again, I need you to know the beasts, right? Who in here, now put in the context of what we just discussed, right, that the expense of law school is a really big deal, right? Who in here, if they got a 70, what is your reaction to, if I got a 70 on the LSAT, I'd be thrilled? Who would take that position?
A 170 or?
No, a 70.
70%?
70 questions correct out of 100.
Oh.
I'll be thrilled.
I'm in.
Yeah. And you would be, for the most part, and again, each individual's journey is distinguishable, right? What does a 70 on the LSAT mean?
Like 1.6.
I'll take out an exam here, just to, this is exam 61. Let's just see what it produced here. No, can't tell you because that sheet's missing. Exam 60. Here you go. So 70 questions on exam 60 means you actually get a 159. Right. So it's going to vary a little bit. But that's exam 60, so I'll use that as a benchmark. So this is actually a 159. Now, I don't speak for any law school. You with me? And so what I'm giving you is the basis of my experience in terms of 159. I got an email yesterday from a 159, took the class. And that person was offered a full ride to St. John's. Could you live with that shame? Could you? Could you live with the shame? Now, there are people capable of 170s, and I in no way mean to discourage them from the journey to a 170. The 170 will be around, I imagine, around the 4th percentile. How bright a puppy do you have to be to end up in the 4th percentile of people taking this test?
How are you measuring brightness?
I'm sorry?
How are you measuring intelligence?
Well, the intelligence measured by the test itself.
That test? Pretty intelligent.
Yeah.
Really intelligent.
No.
You said it was common sense.
The
And
test?
You can really.
Well, okay, but common sense with a 170 is distinguishable from common sense with a 150. You know, my point is, and again, we're all going to work this out together, that it's not one size fits all. You're going to have to come out with, realistically, what can you accomplish? But for the vast majority of people, if you go in there with the goal of a 70, like with a 159, it does depend on your GPA. But the LSAT score is a couple of things. The LSAT score is more probative to how you do, so law schools will put greater weight on it. And you're applying the law school at, there's never been a time like this, that in terms of the market is in disequilibrium, meaning applications have fallen through the floor. Over the past 3 years, applications down about 50%. You with me? So the acceptance rate has gone through the roof. Meaning if you were to look back 5 years, 3 to 5 years ago, the acceptance rate would be around 50%. The acceptance rate now is approaching 80%. Now stop and think about that for a moment, right? Not everybody applies to law school. Like if you have a 133, well, you know, some of them apply. But do you get that not everybody who takes the test applies, right? So you need to take into account that there's a thinning out process, right? But of those folks who apply for admission like in August of this year, it's going to be well above 70% that will be accepted. So how does that sound? Yeah, it's nuts. The thresholds are falling, meaning it's lower scores. It's not a good thing for the profession, for sure. But lower scores are producing more attractive outcomes than in the past, for sure. So if you were to do this on the representative students, and then if I go to like who prepared for the August, I'm preparing some statistical information because I'll actually be meeting with the Dean of PACE in a couple of weeks. And I want to go back over what just happened this year in terms of students and their success. I venture to say no fewer than 80% of all the students who have been accepted to a law school, who went through the program, it's over 80%, have been offered scholarship money. And I'm not talking about $3,000 or $5,000. I'm talking about a majority of students in my life have been offered a free ride from at least one school. Now, it may not be the school they wish to attend, but could you live with the shame of being offered a full ride? Could you live with that shame?
I think so.
And then could you leverage that shame? Could you take
Yes.
the offer of the full ride and bring that to a school you would like to attend and say, gosh, I really like to attend this school, but this other school is going to let me go for free. Help. That's the world you're in. That is absolutely the world you're in. Okay? And we will get there. When you reach that point, I will be here. And you will call me. And you will talk about the offers you've received. And my obligation is to you. Capiche?
Capiche.
You are my clients. My obligation is not, I love PACE. I have graduated from PACE. My obligation is to you. So, this is where you're going to begin. You're going to have humility. And what would happen in college if you got a 60? What percentile ranking would you be in? This, by the way, with that 159, that's going to be about the 20th percentile. I mean, this is you're about 80%, the top 20%, right? But what did that get you in college? You know, because you're talking about getting a 70, right? So in college, you got a C-. On the LSAT, you're in the top 20%. Do you get the difference? What about if you get 60? I mean, how diminished would you feel with a 60? I mean, why go on with life? You got a 60. You fail. I mean, is that a failure in college? Well, let's see what it did on the same exam. And this is, again, exam 60. This is the June 2010 test batch. And a 60 produced what's a 153 going to get you? What's it going to get you?
In college?
How about an offer of admission? And presently, where would you get the offer of admission with 153? Let's stipulate to a reasonable GPA, right? Doesn't have to be high, say.
3.5?
No, 3.2. If you have a 153.32 in the present marketplace, right, and it's very unlikely the marketplace is going to change in the next year. If you have a 153.32, you have low self-esteem, and you have been offered admission to, just in the area law schools, Albany, Pace, Hofstra, Toro, New York Law. If you're a minority, Brooklyn may well be on your list. Cardozo may well be on your list if you are applying in the minority. St. John's, again, a minority. You're in play? No. But could you live, now, at each of those schools, now imagine you have a 153.32, and you've been accepted to Pace, and you've been accepted to Albany, and you've been accepted to Toro, and you've been accepted to Hofstra, and you've been accepted to New York Law, okay? Which is very likely to happen. Do you think they're all going to give you the same offer? So if you wanted to attend one of the 5, and one of the 5 did not give you the highest offer, what would you do?
Bring the highest offer to them.
Yeah. And what will they do?
They'll bring up their offer.
They'll probably match it. Yeah. Yeah. That's the world
They're
you're in.
desperate for students.
What's their incentive to match it?
I'm sorry?
They've already assessed you as a student and said, this is what we're willing to offer you, take it or leave it.
Well, there was a time, Tom, that was the case. There was a time when law schools had far too many candidates and far too few seats. That is no longer the time. It is basically a feeding frenzy. And the feeding frenzy is there aren't enough qualified candidates for law schools. So if that 153, and it's all, remember, the world of law schools is median, not average, right? Which is a huge difference. Because once you hit, if you want a median of 153, say you had 100 students, right? And you have 51 of them that you've accepted at 153, well then you know your median is 153. Well then theoretically you can admit people with 139s. It doesn't affect the median, it affects the average, but it's not done by the average. So the fact is, Tommy, there aren't enough candidates. So if you don't aggressively compete for that 153 and the person attends elsewhere, you're probably going to be swimming for a 147. The market is completely out of whack. It's never ever been like this before. So you handle this with ethics, right? Meaning you don't mislead, but you handle it as a business endeavor, which is okay. I want to pay as little as possible to go to law school. So and make time. It is. I could tell you a story after, you know, it's all anecdotal, but the incoming group, like I say, 80% or more received, say, $10,000 or more in scholarship money. Almost all received a free ride somewhere. Where again, you don't have to go, but you have the offer to leverage. Law schools simply do not have enough students right now. And qualified students? A 143 on this test would mean you would have 43 questions right. Okay. Well, how about if I tell you that 143s are now, and I'm not saying all 143s, but there are multiple examples of 143s being accepted to law school. And we're talking about area law schools. To my knowledge, Pace has not done that. Schools are doing that. Do you understand that means you got 43 questions right out of 100? You should guess 20 right. So the market is so out of whack. This is not good. This is dangerous to the profession, because if the test actually measures the capacity to be an attorney, and you start admitting people who haven't demonstrated that capacity, there's going to be a problem. And it will be, I think there will be time.
I have a follow-up question. From what I've read, there's an issue, a lot of people are, there's a disincentive to go to law school because there's not the job once you graduate. Why has the lack of applicants, not kind of, I guess, translated to an abundance of jobs?
Well, there's,
Aren't we waiting for the baby boomers to kick? No offense.
well, no, yeah, but it's not, the market is distinguishable from, you're saying there aren't fewer people graduating. In other words, basically, if you look at it, there are fewer people applying.
Yeah.
Right? So if I go back about 3 years ago, 120,000 or 130,000 people took the LSAT. This year, that's going to be under 100,000. It's going to be maybe 95,000. So the number of people taking this is down. But the actual law school seats, I think they hit a high about 5 years ago of about 51,000, meaning across the country, right? There are 51,000 accredited law school seats. There are now about 44,000 accredited law schools. So it's down, but not.
They're still filling.
They've got to run a business. You don't have time. They've got to fill the seats. And this is not an industry that's, it's not market driven. They're not accustomed to, this is not Apple. You know, this is not a culture that is adept at responding to markets, because they've never had to, because they've always had way too many students and way too few slots. So do you get that money may not be an issue? Yes, please.
Sorry. Are these
Did you say sorry? Did you raise your hand, attempt to inquire, and then apologize for it?
I did.
Don't do that again.
Are these numbers just correlating to like in-state, like in the area schools? Like let's say I wanted to go to school in Connecticut hypothetically. Are these numbers correlating to that
Yes.
as well? Yeah.
Yeah, the question being, is the analysis I'm performing just limited to the New York City area? And the answer is no, it is not. Law schools across the country are all in the same boat. So absolutely, you know, I mean, obviously it's going to vary from school to school, but
And you're going to address the job situation, right? Just check.
do you have one?
The job situation, yes.
That's good.
By the way, I know a ton of
And-
lawyers. I don't know any that are unemployed.
You don't know what?
I don't know any unemployed lawyers right now, actually. I mean, I'm not saying there aren't.
And one senile one.
Multiple senile.
I had something to say, but now I don't remember now that I was listening.
Okay. All right. But one step at a time, I need you motivated. Can you imagine here, you're sitting at the right place at the right time at the ideal moment? Because you are. And I'll make that case. And if I don't make that case, I want you to challenge me. How cool is that? And I'm not going to yell at you, and I'm not going to cause you to feel as though you're diminished. How often in college have you been rewarded for challenging the person at the front of the room? Orthodoxy is death. I don't care whether it's orthodoxy of the left or orthodoxy of the right. It dismantles your ability to question and reason. You must not allow that to happen. You will be used. You are being used. Yes.
As a follow-up to your question, online there's a list of like what the colleges or law schools average GPA and their average LSAT score is, and if you call, most of the offices will give you information on the phone. Just depends on who you get on the phone, but it's usually easy to get if you get on the phone.
There's like I've done it. It's like the top ranked law schools, and they
Yeah.
update it pretty frequently, so it's like a few times.
The LSAC website, www.lsac.org. They have actually a tool on there that if you put in a GPA and you put in an LSAT score, it'll give you a sense for what schools you're competitive for. So you guys get that what you do is you take inventory of what you're capable of, and that will vary. There are people in this room who will be capable of a 90. There are people in this room who are capable of a 60. But if you get a 60, where will you go?
Here.
You go to law school, and you'll get some money. And if you do well in your first year, what can you do at the beginning of your second year?
Transfer.
Well, you could do that. What else could you do? This is an optimist. What if you actually liked the school? What could you then do? If you were in the top 10% after your first year, but you had only received $7,000 in scholarship money?
Ask for more.
Absolutely, you renegotiate. It's a whole new world. Everyone who, well, the protocol is when you're given a scholarship, it's tied to your law school performance. So maybe you have to end up in the top half of the class. Well, if the law school extends scholarship offers to 75% of incoming students, and all of 75% of the incoming students show up, but only 50% of students can maintain their scholarship, what's going to happen?
Be more money in the bank.
Right, and that's the way this works. You with me? So the money comes back and then is sent out to the next incoming class. Capiche? As well as to students who have outperformed. So I just need you to understand the test is very challenging. And again, my concern is, as you sit here now, you really don't know the value of your undergraduate education. You're about to find out. And that can be really tough, because as you look at the reading comp, what Kirsten was saying before, the reading comp takes no prisoners. You're going to have to read dry, complicated, dense material. And what do you think you're going to have to read in law school?
Dry, dense material.
Yeah, do you get it? It's a great test. Now, having said that, and again, you don't attend the school where the people in the school say to you, oh, by the way, we're a joke. The people in the school will say, do you know we made Princeton's Review top 10 list? That's great. Congratulations. It doesn't mean a damn thing. So you've got to work with the assets you have, because you're not going to change all those assets between now and September. Not going to happen. You're not going to sit here, fill up physical space, and move on to the next year. You with me? Have you ever met somebody in college who filled up physical space, who paid no attention to what was going on in that room, and the following year, that person was yet again in a room with you 1 year closer to graduation? Have you ever met that person?
Yep.
Yeah.
So if you take that experience out and you try to go to law school and you're learning about your tricks and your shortcuts and you can't wait to get at those logic games, you're dead. So you understand, no one in here is going to spend time with me, and at the end of this, I'm going to give you all a grade. And so I'm going to give you your C+ or your B- or your A, and you're going to graduate. No. No. To sit here and occupy physical space, that's great in college. Well, it's not great in college, but it's fine. It'll get you through. You with me? You need to engage. You need to treat this the way you're going to treat law school. It's your life. You're going to die. I mean, you know, it's like, if it's not a dream, don't do it. If it is a dream, why would you do anything else? And why would God not want you to be an attorney? You know, I mean, well, I'm lost. You know, if this is what your passion is, right? Why would God not? Why would, I mean, and if that's what God wants, there's nothing I'm going to do. But why, in heaven's name, would God interfere with that? But it's got to be what you want. So getting in is not about just getting in, it's getting in with money, and it's about having a plan that maximizes that first. Looking out, is it fair to say everybody in this room is 4 years away from practicing law?
Yes.
Is it fair to say?
Hopefully.
Well, a minimum of 4 years away from practicing law accurately. Don't want to be hopeful. Want to be accurate.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, do you think it matters what the average age of an attorney is?
No.
You're thinking about getting work, right? Well, now,
Oh wait, I take that back.
well, now that's a good thing to do.
Because a lot of the lawyers are not very old. Take that back.
In 1987, I was admitted to practice law in New York State. It was a travesty, but they did it. In 1987, the average age of an attorney was approximately 35 to 37 years old. So when I came out to the marketplace, didn't that 35-year-old attorney still have another 30 years of practice?
Yep.
Yes.
Capiche?
Capiche.
So would you agree that number matters?
Yes.
Meaning that was not ideal, right? Because I've got those people all in front of me, they're already practicing, I'm behind the line, right? And we were coming out in droves in 1987. Anybody want to tell me, according to the American Bar Association, what the average age of an attorney is?
Isn't it around your age?
Well, now shouldn't you know that? Where is your preparation? Where is your research? Why do I know it and you don't?
Because you have experience and we don't.
Now you're sounding like Justice Breyer. Oh, I got to write that. The Supreme Court thing up. The average age of an attorney is approximately 57 to 58. Yeah, how cool is that? We're almost dead. It is so cool. We're the baby boomers, right? And what's happening is, have you guys been out to Kennedy? And you know, like to have the moving walkway? Well, picture this, right? I want you in your mind's eye, just picture that demographically, right? It's dispersed by age, right? And so it's way, way, way up in the front. And of course, when you come off the moving walkway, it's not actually the airport, it's you die, right? So we're all on the moving walkway. Now, there are some people coming on, but not too many because law is not popular right now, right? So the number of people actually getting on the walkway, the number of people graduating is the same, but it's a little bit lower, right? But basically, the number of people getting JDs is the same. But do you think more people get JDs and do something else now?
Yes.
Yes.
Maybe they can't find jobs. And while it is true, Vicki, there's nobody you and I know who's not employed. Even though you're 20 years younger than I am, you're still not a teenager. So the folks you know are of approximately the same age. Folks coming into the market have a tough time, no doubt about it, no doubt about it. Now, but do you get it? We're on the moving walkway, and it's demographically distributed, right? So I'm in the 60-year-old group, and we're the baby boomers, right? Baby boomers run from 1946 to 1961, right? And there are tons of us. So I'm on the walkway, and it's kind of like this, and I'm surrounded by baby boomers, and there is no place for us to go. And I know when I get to the threshold of the doorway, I'm going to die. And I'm not happy about it. But where am I going?
Towards Norway.
I'm going to die. Do you get it? There are anybody know how many attorneys are there in this country?
In the country?
Yeah, how many attorneys are there? I mean, not that you should know such a thing, because we all know I'm experienced, meaning old.
Oh, don't take it.
How many attorneys are there in the country? Huh? If you don't know, don't guess. Now, we're at the military graduation, and they go out of their way. They keep saying, and Vicki will corroborate this, that less than 1% of all people in this country join the military. Now, doesn't that make it sound like they want me to infer that's a really pathetically low number? It's almost insulting. Less than 1%. How many people are there in this country?
A lot.
300 million?
I think about 320 million. What's 1% of 320 million?
35,000.
Okay. Yeah, that's a big number. Capiche? Well, that's 1%. Now, lawyers. There are 1.3 million lawyers in this country. But there are 320 million people in the country. So that comes out to be about 1/2 of 1%, or lower than the military. if the median age, not median, the average age is going to be 57, what's going to happen in 10 years?
Retirement.
Yeah, yeah, huge. Again, I'm right in the middle, I'm 54.
But how
So-
many lawyers actually retire at 65?
Well, we're not talking about 65, we're talking about,
70.
I am 60. There are, but I'm 54, right? Meaning born in 54, right? Or so I'm
Oh,
told.
I think you're saying 54.
So there are a bunch of people to my left who are older than I am. And you're talking about nobody in this room is going to be practicing law for another 4 to 5 years, right? So 4 to 5 years, I'm 65. But the people older than I am, I mean, if I'm here, I'm 65. The number will go from 1.3 million to 750,000 in about the next 12 years. Do you think you'll be here in 12 years?
Yes.
And in 12 years, you'll be, well, for some of you who say you're about 23, so in 12 years, you'll be 25 years younger than I am now. You with me? 12 years from now, you'll be 20, I'll be dead. You'll be 25 years younger than I am now. You'll have all that time in front of you. Capiche? How terrible does that sound as a business plan?
Good for us.
You bet it's good for you. The goal here, one, don't do it if it's not a dream, yes?
Yes.
Now you say, okay, it's a dream. I'm gonna rock. I'm gonna go to law school and I'm gonna get money so that I don't come out burdened with debt. Two, I understand that this is a life commitment. I'm not viewing this in what will the job market be in 4 years. I don't know what the job market's going to be in 4 years. I don't know what it's going to be in 40 years. Nor did I when I became an attorney. Nor did Vicky when Vicky became an attorney. There's no way to know that. But I do know that attrition is huge, meaning way, way more of us are leaving the workforce over the next 12 years than are entering. Does that make sense?
Yes.
And then the final thing, and I'm going to stop because Peter's outside. The final thing is, what regulation does an attorney not want to hug? When you have a regulation, who interprets the regulation? Vicky, what do you do for a living?
Interpret regulations.
So let me see. We're going to have, we're on a path that we're going to be a less regulated society, right? Right?
Yeah.
No. No. I mean, well, you never know. We can hope. All right? But let me see. Immigration. There's no, I mean, you have no future if you want to be in immigration law, right? Because we're stopping the immigrants. I saw it. They're stopping as of today. No more immigrants are coming over the border. Right? And the ones that are here are going back. Right? So there is no prospect of employment in immigration law. Yes? Now, of course, healthcare law, we're going to repeal the Affordable Care Act because it's not affordable and it is an act. So we're going to repeal it, right? Right, it's going to go away. We're going to go back to the way we had insurance. President Obama is going to apologize for the embarrassment, right? And Vicky's going to be fired because there are going to be no more regulations to interpret, and it's going to be kumbaya. How about elder law? Nobody's getting older, and we're living a shorter period of time, or we will be if this keeps up. All right. How about environment? We're just gonna forget, the global warming thing. We don't care about that. Do you get where, and again, whether you endorse this or don't endorse this is not relevant. Do you get that this is the trend that where we're going? Into a more am I missing something, or does it appear to be the case we are a more highly regulated society than we were in the past, and the trend appears to be continuing? That's all jobs for attorneys. You're in a great spot. Does that make sense? So could it be the case it's affordable to go to law school? Could it be the case that there'll be jobs when you get out? And could it be the case that this is a future worth having?
Yeah.
What was that?
Well, I was just saying sarcasm, because I'm not sure everybody understands that you're being sarcastic.
It's not important for them to understand. It's only important for me to understand. Basically, it's from now on for the rest of your life. It's all about language. It's all about requiring an understanding and demanding of yourself an understanding of what words mean, which you do not know how to do. So you'll hear something like social justice, you'll feel a little warm and fuzzy about it, it may be a wonderful thing, I don't know what the hell it means. Right? Those days are gone. When I use the word argument, would it be fair to say that you have used the word argument in your life? Is that fair to say?
Yes.
Is it further fair to say that you don't repeatedly use words that you don't know the definitions for? Is that fair to say? It's not fair to say. Well, and you're right. It is fair to say that's got to change. Yes, that's what's got to change. So I say the word argument, and I ask you, what does the word mean? What does the word mean? What does the word argument mean? Anybody?
Two different perspectives.
Well, how precise a definition was that? So two different perspectives.
Two different.
Okay.
Create.
Well, now you've used the word perspective, is that correct?
Yes.
And am I not now entitled to inquire as what the word perspective means, since you have used it in giving me a definition?
A viewpoint or a stance.
A viewpoint or a stance. And may I then inquire as to what constitutes a viewpoint or a stance?
One's belief.
Well, now, and how does one establish one's belief?
Social justice.
It's all about language, you know, and it's so from now on it's going to be, you're going to require definitions. And the folks who have constructed this test have constructed it with definitions in advance. And that is what you will find in when you're looking at when you're looking at the New York State Penal Law. Section 10 of the New York State Penal Law sets forth all the definitions of the terms used. Now those terms, those definitions may not be the definitions you yourself use, right? So if you look at the New York State Penal Law, there's a definition of physical injury, okay? Well, if I punch you in the nose and your nose is bleeding, would you imagine that that is physical injury in regular life? If you get punched in the nose and your nose is bleeding, did you just get did you just endure physical injury? Talk to me.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, what do you think the New York State Court of Appeals says about that?
They think differently.
They think differently. It is not physical injury. So do you get that definitions are unique to the text they appear in and may differ from text to text? Yes? So the word argument. I will now tell you what I believe they mean by the word argument, and they mean what's up on this board. So you will now pay attention to the word argument. How many times on the LSAT do you think you're going to see the word argument?
Many.
And what if you didn't understand precisely what they meant by using that word? Would you agree with me? You would be in trouble.
Yes.
And you are. I'm going to help. I'm going to try to help. But you are in trouble because this is what they do. Because won't you have to learn the definitions of whatever it is you practice?
Yes.
So they're going to have to learn them now. I believe this is what the word argument means. So you're going to look at, now, if you see you're in logical reasoning. Question number 4 says, each of the following strengthens the argument except. Did you all hear my words? Each of the following strengthens the argument except. What are we looking for? The one that doesn't what?
Strengthen.
Well, what does that mean?
Or could
No.
Oh, no, whoa. Now, wait a minute. Wait a minute. Each of the following strengthens the argument except. Now, what is your final position?
That one answer doesn't strengthen the argument.
Okay. Can you give me an example of things that fail to strengthen an argument? Well, Would you agree with me that weakening an argument fails to strengthen the argument?
Yes.
Does everybody agree with that?
Yes.
So is the answer they're looking for something that weakens the argument?
Not all the
Not
time.
necessarily.
There you go. Good job, Leslie. What else could they be looking for?
What is it?
Something that leaves the argument right where it was.
If you leave the argument untouched and you've been asked each of the following strengthens the argument except, wouldn't that be the answer?
Yes.
Yeah. You're reading in a new way. If you leave it alone, you're not strengthening it. You're leaving it alone, which is, I think, where you were going with that.
Yes.
Yes, cool. So, how about this? How about, do you understand you need to have an awareness of this? All right, and you're going to brief to get there. You're going to go slow as can be. Okay. Now, how about if question number 6 says, which of the following strengthens the argument? And question number 7 says, which of the following is most strongly supported by the information above? Here, question number 6 says, which of the following strengthens the argument? Is it pretty clear what the issue is?
Yes.
And does everybody understand that is the issue?
Yes.
Which of the following strengthens the argument? But the very next question says, which of the following is most strongly supported by the information above? What are you being asked? I have the words, but now I have to characterize the issue, right? What's the issue? Each of the following. Now I forgot what I said. What did I just say?
Which of the following is most strongly supported
Yeah.
by the information?
Yeah. Which of the following is most strongly supported by the information above? What do they ask? What do you have to do to that argument?
Find the argument.
Yeah, what?
You have to find the argument. You have the evidence, but you don't have the argument.
Well, but what are they asking you to do, Leslie? Each of the following. Which of the following is most strongly supported by the information above? What are you being asked to do? Are you being asked to weaken? Are you being asked to strengthen? Or tell me.
Find a conclusion.
Find a conclusion. Which of the following is most strongly supported by the information above? Find a conclusion. Any particular type of conclusion?
Logical one that flows from the.
Well, now, you have said a logical one. Does logical one imply a deductive conclusion, an inductive conclusion, or can it be either?
Either.
Hmm?
Deductive.
Oh, deductive. And you are correct. When the word logically is used on the LSAT, then they are asking you for a deductive conclusion.
I'll change that reasonably.
Well, wait, change. What do you mean? What are you changing?
Look, put reasonably in where I put logically.
Okay. Do you get? You've got to become fluent in their language. So when I say to you, and you're going to get these questions. In other words, which of the following is most strongly supported by the information above? You are going to see that question on your test multiple times. You understand that? The issues don't change. But if the issue is not clear, it's going to appear on your test. But if the issue is not clear, how can you do any of this? In other words, if you don't understand the issue, how can you apply it to the law, the rules of the law? You can't. And if you can't apply the issue to the law, how do you do the analysis? You can't. So they're requiring you to understand the issue. And yes, they are asking you for a conclusion. They are not, however, asking you for a deductive conclusion. Which of the following is most strongly supported by the information above is asking you for an inductive conclusion. Now, when's the last time you've had a rousing conversation with your fellow
Peers.
Yeah, on what the difference is between inductive and deductive.
I was just going to ask that.
You should be afraid to ask nothing. You should be afraid to remain silent. You should be afraid to agree with people because a lot of them agree. That's what you should be afraid of. Now, how dare you ask that question? So, and we're going to get into it. But do you understand? When I say the word conclusion, don't you want to think it has one iteration?
No. Well,
Right?
yes, but it doesn't.
Yeah, you want to think, oh, so that word means the same all the time? No. You're good. About 14% of the test has to do with drawing conclusions. Some are deductive, some are inductive. Some are explicit, some are implicit. It's a hell of a test. It really is a hell of a test. So the difference between inference and deduction is deduction must be true. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. It's got to be true. So, you know, an example would be all cities have trees. Paris is a city. What can you tell me about Paris? There's trees. Deductively correct, no way to avoid it. Now, it can be fictional, right? I could say all cities have people with red hair, which I used to have. And Nome, Alaska is a city. Does Nome, Alaska have to have somebody with red hair? No. But it's valid deductively, correct? Capiche?
Capiche.
Okay. So here, on a conclusion question, when you're being asked, which of the, you guys tell me the difference. And on how many occasions have you read a sentence, right? And one sentence says, which of the following can be concluded, right? As opposed to, which of the following can be properly concluded. Now, you're going to see both of those on the LSAT. What's the difference?
One is
What?
deduction and the other one is inference.
You're going to have to yell at me.
One is the evidence.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you what I heard. It went like this. One is evidence. I think I know what you meant. But yeah, the word properly, it's all about language. And again, when you're sitting with Peter, it's all about bloody language. When the word properly modifies the word conclusion, it's in deduction. It must be so. When the word logically modifies the word conclusion, it's deductive. It must be true. When that word is not there and it says, which of the following is a conclusion, it's inferential. So, deduction must be true. Inferential is the bulk of the test. And let me see if I can remember the inscription on the book. Every error consists of assigning to a particular effect that which did not cause it. Yeah. I see furrowed brows. That's really good to have furrowed brows as we reach 4 hours and 15 minutes, because I infer a furrowed brow either is your way of flipping me the bird, or more likely, you're trying to think. That's good. For those of you who can't furrow your brow, it looks like this. So, think about this. It's so bloody important. Every time you have made a mistake, what you have done is you have assigned to a particular effect that which did not cause it. Meaning, the person who walks under, the superstitious person who walks under the ladder, goes another 5 or 10 feet, and then gets hit by a car. That person infers they got hit by the car for what reason? Probably mistaken. Now, I have to infer that that's wrong. Capiche? And inferring is a decidedly human thing, so my inference may be wrong. But that person assigned a particular cause, the walking under the ladder, that brought about, in effect, getting hit by the car, when in fact it's quite likely that it was not the cause. So inference is this process, think about it, because again, you've got to become aware of how you reason, or this test is going to make no sense, or you'll just get what you would have got anyway. You know, it may be that you, as you sit here now, you get a 165, because that's the way you're wired, right? But you can change your wiring, and you can improve your wiring. But you need to understand what they're doing, and what they're doing is so cool. If we were outside, and let's say the shades were drawn, And let's say you left the house. Now I'm going to try to work with names here. By the end of this, either I will know all of you quite well, or I will be at the nursing home.
Or both.
Or both. Thank you. Now, is that Daniel in the back?
Yeah.
How are you, Daniel?
Doing well, how are you?
Well, you know, it could be worse than 60. Now, Daniel, I'm going to ask you to engage in a hypothetical with me, and I'm trying to establish what this process is. Let's pretend it was raining. All right, let's pretend it was raining all day. All right. And we're out in the hall, and the shades are drawn so you can't see the rain, all right? And we're inside so we can't feel the rain. Everybody great?
Yes.
And I say to you, and we hear a pounding against the window, right? What do you believe is causing the pounding at the window? The rain. Everybody agree?
Yes.
We're not trying to get fancy about it. What I'm trying to establish to you is this is not just law. It's what we do every day. Wouldn't it be fair to say, now, so if I would take this hypothetical, so Daniel, approximately what time did you leave your house? May I inquire?
8 o'clock.
And when you left your house, what, if anything, did you observe about the weather conditions?
Sunny.
It was what?
Sunny.
Don't be difficult. We're going that it was raining.
Oh.
All right. And did there come a time when you got into your car? What is that?
Yes.
Yes or no, or I don't remember, in which case I'm going to get you off the stand.
Yes.
And when you got in the car, there came a time that you activated a certain device on the car. And what was that device? The windshield wipers. And why did you activate the windshield wipers?
Because it was rain.
It was rain. And did you have an opportunity to observe that rain?
Yeah.
Okay. And for how long did you drive?
30 minutes.
For 30 minutes. And during that 30 minutes, what, if any, observations did you make about the weather conditions?
Still raining.
And were you able to observe the rain?
Yeah.
And did there come a time when you exited the car?
Yeah.
And did there come a time when you had to walk a certain distance?
Yeah, I got wet.
And you got wet? And is that because you wet yourself? What was the cause of you getting wet?
And I had to go to the bathroom, but it was raining.
Excellent. It was both, yes. Isn't it fair to say that you have been here for fewer than 20 minutes? It's a hypothetical.
Sure.
Okay. And now I ask you, do you hear a noise at or about the window? That's right here.
It's the rain.
It's the rain. Now, would it be fair to say you have inferred that?
Yeah.
Can you see the rain from in here? Can you feel the rain from in here? So you actually don't know by your physical senses if it's raining, do you? Does everybody agree with Daniel's conclusion that in that hypothetical, what he's hearing is rain?
Yes.
To a certain standard of proof. Is everybody convinced by a preponderance of the evidence, which means 50.1%, that it's rain? If you're on a jury and we hear Daniel's testimony, will you say, yes, I find for Daniel on a preponderance of the evidence? Meaning it's more likely than not it's rain.
Yes.
Talk to me. Everybody see it?
Yes.
This is where you're going.
No.
Now we're going to go up a step, right? Now we're going to go beyond a reasonable doubt.
No. No.
Well, now I'm not done. So now you say, has Daniel's testimony persuaded you beyond a reasonable doubt that it's raining outside? Now, Anya says no, and I want to know why.
Could have been anything else.
Someone could be watering the flowers and the water's hitting the window.
Now you say someone could be watering the flowers, but we're on the second floor.
They could be window washing, so they're rinsing it.
Now, I believe that's a different hypothetical.
Either.
I thought you were talking about watering the flowers.
When you walked in, are you sure there weren't any hanging pots?
Window boxes.
Well, now,
Did you notice?
I did not notice.
So then how do you know they're on fluorescent?
Did I say I know, or did I say beyond a reasonable doubt?
I'm not convinced there aren't.
Well, now, you're not going on my jury. Do you get that you have to infer the rain, right? To infer the rain is just to some likelihood, and we can disagree about that. In other words, there are people who would say, and I would be among them, that based on Daniel's testimony, I would be satisfied beyond a reasonable doubt, not beyond all doubt, but beyond the reasonable doubt. Because the alternative hypotheses, if you're up on the second floor, is in the context of what we just discussed, right? Meaning it's been raining all day. It's only been 15 minutes. The gap is de minimis. The alternative competing theories seem to me kind of weak. Yeah, it could be a garden hose. There could be somebody down there with a garden hose, but that doesn't mean it's still not raining. I didn't say it was only rain. I said it was rain, right? And there could be pots out there, and somebody could be watering the pots out there on the second floor from the roof, right?
Possible.
But that doesn't mean it's not what?
No,
Yeah.
it's not.
So, but you have to infer.
Yes.
That's really what this test is fundamentally about, is you need to be able to see what's not there. To see, I'll give you the definition of an inference that they use, I believe they use, which is an inference is a fact that you can arrive at that's not stated in the original argument. So it's a fact not stated in the original argument that you can arrive at through the argument itself, through the facts that are in the argument. It just, let's drive a little bit, shall we? Shall we hop in the car? Now, I want everybody to hop in the car. And we're going to drive down a street. Now, in the distance, do you see the stop sign that I see? It's a hypothetical, so please say yes. Right? Everybody see the stop sign, right? Now, we haven't reached the stop sign. It's an event that's in the future, yes?
Yes.
What do you infer you will do when you get to the stop sign?
Stop.
Does everybody agree? No? You don't infer you're going to stop? What?
I don't know you're right.
Leslie, what is your plan? Leslie is, wait, I'm interested in this. Now, Leslie, which you may want to wait for her to leave the lot first, right? You don't expect to stop?
We can.
Well, I understand you can. Thank you for that. What is the plan? As you see the stop sign,
Maybe her brakes gave out.
we're not talking any extraordinary event here. You're just driving out of the lot. You don't expect to stop at the stop sign? Or you do?
Is there a cop up there or no?
No, you're just in a regular car. You're just driving. Well, we'll let you think about that. We'll let you mull over that, and I will alert the White Plains Police Department.
And they give out tickets or nothing, so.
But do you get, when you see that sign, I mean, nobody's thinking about this, right? But when you see that stop sign, don't you infer that when you get to the stop sign, you will stop at it?
Yes.
But you get, that inference comes from the facts present in the argument. The fact is, I'm in the car, yes?
Yes.
The fact is, I'm driving the car.
Yes.
The fact is, I see the stop sign.
Yes.
The fact is, the car is in motion.
Yes.
Wouldn't you agree from all of those explicit facts, a reasonable inference is, when I get to the stop sign, I will stop. We're not trying to be cute. Do you get it?
Yes.
Because this really is what the test is testing. Okay. Now, what would interfere with that inference? Well, now, if on your way to the, I'm sorry, what's it? Well, if on your way to the stop sign, a meteorite impacted your car and blew you and the car halfway to Tennessee in the opposite direction of the stop sign, would you agree with me that you are not going to stop when you get to the stop sign?
You're not gonna get to the stop.
Would you agree? Yeah, you're not going to get there. Well, then you can't stop at it. Would you agree?
Yes.
So you have assumed. Once you infer you're going to get there, you now have a conclusion, right? I have a conclusion. I'm going to get there. Now, once you have a conclusion, you can look for assumptions. Not before then, only after you conclude. So you have now concluded. First was an infer, right? I infer I'm going to get to the stop sign. Then you conclude I'm going to stop when I get there. Okay. Haven't you assumed that you will actually get to the stop sign?
You said assumptions come after conclusion?
Does an assumption come after a conclusion? Well, it all depends what the word after means. Now, every conclusion you have, every time you reach a conclusion, don't you assume it's non-negation? Everybody agree?
Yes.
Meaning, if you've concluded, if you have, and we don't really know that. I think I'm 60, but I don't know. I don't remember being born. And I'm not sure that the evidence that exists is valid. You know, my youngest daughter, Carolyn, her birth certificate says she was born on May the 3rd, 1992. But I was there. She was born on May the 2nd, 1992. They made a mistake. So you may look at your birth certificate and say, I know when I'm born because I have my birth certificate, but don't you assume the information on the birth certificate is accurate?
Yes.
This is law. Don't you see how that helps you investigate a case?
Yes.
Where you take every piece of evidence and you're questioning it, which goes to where I'm trying to get you. I have, Lord knows, nothing against social justice. I am offended by language that really is meaningless.
I looked up social justice and that was not used in the right context.
I'm sorry?
I said I looked up social justice and I don't think you used that in the right context.
You don't think it can be used?
The way you just used it, no. Was that used properly? I thought you still didn't know what it meant.
I don't know. I don't know what the term means. So how would I possibly know if it's being used
I looked
properly?
it up before and I don't think it's used properly.
So, do you get a clearer sense of what an inference is?
Yes.
An inference extends an argument. You with me? However slight, it extends it. Do you think, does everybody infer that you're going to have dinner tonight?
I don't.
Don't get fancy about it. Does everybody infer you're going to have dinner tonight?
Yes.
What have you assumed?
Nobody could.
I'm sorry? Well, a bunch of things. Haven't you assumed you'll be alive?
Yes.
Well, now, doesn't it follow you will be wrong once?
Yes.
So, you'll be, well, unless you plan to live forever, there will come a time when you're saying, well, I'm going to have dinner tonight, and you will not be here to see dinner.
Oh, you said I'm gonna be wrong.
Well, yeah, you'll be wrong because you're going to be dead.
Oh,
Right? Because you're going to infer, I'm really looking forward to that ribeye tonight, right?
Yeah.
And then you die just
No,
thinking
you
about
said,
the
like,
ribeye.
wrong.
No matter how safe an inference appears, it is dangerous. So, because it is not deductive, because it can be 99.99%, that's not 100%. But what must be true? What must be true? What statement can you make that must be true? Inferentially. Must it be true that we die?
Yes.
No.
Well, no.
Yes.
Yes?
Yeah.
May I inquire?
Yes.
Now, when you say it must be true, you have now said it's 100% certainty. Is that correct?
Yes.
So we're not talking about the likelihood of something, we're talking about something that must occur.
Yes.
Okay. May I inquire?
Yes.
Now, could God exist?
Yes.
And could the God that exists be omnipotent?
Good. Yes.
I merely asked that. I appreciate the rolling of the eyes and the repeating of the word could. That's what I said. Could God be omnipotent?
Yes.
Could it be that we do not know the mind of that omnipotent God?
Yes.
Leading the witness.
And could it be the case that that mind of that omnipotent, meaning all-powerful God, is to inflict me on this race forever? Could that be the case?
No, probably.
With respect, didn't you just tell me that God is omnipotent?
Yes.
So unless we have a disagreement about what that term means, which means God can do anything, then I don't understand the proposition that you say on the one hand God can do anything, and yet you say on the other hand there is something that God cannot do. I'm confused now. I'm
Show
old.
me a person that's lived forever, let me know.
Well, is God omnipotent?
Yes.
And can an omnipotent being do anything?
Yes.
Because if it couldn't do anything, it wouldn't be omnipotent. Okay. And isn't an example of anything simply to inflict me on the rest of the human race for whatever reasons God has?
Possible?
And that is my position. It is possible. And so it doesn't have to be true that I'm going to die.
But it is true.
The distinction is, in the real world of law, you run on a spectrum. And the spectrum never hits 0 and never hits 100. Right? So down here you get to a bunch of zeros and then a 1. Up here you get 99 to infinity. But the very fact that it's inferential means it's not deductive. Right? And deductive is the 0 and the 100. So the inference is, how compelling do you think it was 800 years ago? How compelling do you think it was to assert that the sun revolved around the earth? I'm sorry? How compelling do you think it was? What is this? What year is this?
2014.
2014. So in the year 1214, how compelling do you think it was to say the sun revolves around the earth?
Crazy talk.
Excuse me. Wouldn't you say in the year 1214 that must be true?
Yes.
And you would look up the sky, and the sun would be here, and then the sun would be there, and then the sun would be over there, and the sun would disappear.
Didn't they believe the year revolved around the sun revolved around us?
Isn't that a statement that at the time it was made would be mistaken for something that must be true? It's an inference. And it's an inference that was uniformly adopted and clearly wrong.
Oh, I think you said the other way around.
Maybe I did. I am old. Feeble, some might say.
No.
But you guys see, talk to me. So it's becoming aware of language. It's becoming aware that, again, you're going to get tested on this left and right. When they ask you for an inference, you're going to get an answer that's an assumption. Is that going to be correct? In other words, you're going to be asked to draw an inference, right? Choice A is going to be an assumption, something required for the validity of your argument. And if you choose choice A, will you get the answer correct? No, you weren't asked for an assumption. You were asked for an inference. So how much time in your life have you spent distinguishing one from the other?
Never.
But you've got to. Yeah, you got to. This now changes. So in its most basic form, an inference extends an argument. Do you see it? You just, no matter how slight, an assumption takes place after you have a conclusion, and then you say, all right, no, this is my conclusion. What other things must be true for this to be valid? So this is your world in logical reasoning. And the issue we're going to start with are flaws. We're going to start with flaws, and the reason we're going to start with flaws is it's about 12% of your test. And again, going back to the way we describe a flaw is not weakening an argument. So the first thing we need is what language do they use to say, okay, we want you to find the flaw in the argument. Like, they may say, find the flaw in the argument. They may not. So, if you're asked to identify an error in reasoning, what have you been asked to identify? A flaw. So, the language they use, they can use the word argument or the word reasoning. Every flaw issue involves a completed argument. You with me? So it's got to have the word reasoning or the word argument, they're interchangeable, in there. Yes? So if you don't see the word argument or the word reasoning, you're not looking at a flaw issue. Now, one of those two words has to be accompanied by another word. Well, first would be the word flaw. And the word error. And the word vulnerable. And the word questionable. That's it. Nobody's trying to trick you. Whereas if you want to identify when the issue is a flaw, right, which again will be 12 to 15% of your task. So would you agree with me that's significant? Yes. Yeah. You're going to look at, as you always will, the way you approach logical reasoning is you're going to read the issue first. The issue is the form of the question, right? So you're not going to read the argument first. You're going to read the issue first, which is it, am I here to weaken? Am I here to strengthen? Am I here to find a conclusion or a flaw? I need my instructions before I read the actual law. I need to know what the issue is. Flawed reasoning, flawed. Questionable argument, flaw. Vulnerable reasoning, flaw. Error in the argument, flaw. Does that appear to be terribly difficult to recognize?
No.
That's it. No tricks, no shortcuts, no anything. So with that, I now know what the issue is, right? But now conceptually, I have to understand what's a flaw. What is a bloody flaw? Well, a flaw is a systemic defect, right? Remember what we said about, you have this really compelling case, but you failed to comply with the process in the state. Well, you failed to comply with process, that's the end of it. Okay. So it's a systemic defect, meaning you're going to read it and you're going to see it. Or you're going to read it and you're not going to see it, in which case get your ass out of there. All right? Now, what technique do you use when you're approaching flaw questions? Okay? And here's the technique. And I'll demonstrate it. You're going to read the conclusion first. You're going to read the bloody argument out of order. Unless the conclusion is the first sentence. You with me? And you're supposed to say to me, why? Why am I reading this bloody thing out of order? And I'm supposed to say to you, if the argument is flawed, doesn't it have to be the case that the conclusion cannot be adequately supported by the evidence? Talk to me.
Yes.
They're telling you in advance what you're about to read is flawed, yes? But what that means is that this cannot follow from what was offered. So this is a witness that I'm going to put on the stand. Well, I wouldn't put the witness on the stand. But this is a witness I'm going to let testify. Because maybe I have the grand jury minutes. Maybe I have the felony hearing minutes, but I've got prior something, right? I know what the witness is going to testify to. I know the conclusion, right? And I know the evidence is going to come up short. So the way you deal with that witness is you challenge nothing. You simply say, yes, Mr. Smith, I agree. And yes, Mr. Smith, I agree with that. And yes, Mr. Smith, I agree with that. And then in summation, you rip Mr. Smith to shreds. Because Mr. Smith's evidence will fail to support the conclusion that he wants to draw. You're going to go slow as can be, right? Now, do you think the folks in the LSAC, if they're asking you to identify a flaw in an argument, right? Is there any obvious reason why they should disguise the conclusion? No. Yeah, there is no obvious reason. In other words, they're asking you to identify a flaw, right? Okay. Who besides you is going to be looking for the conclusion first?
Not very many, no.
No. And then you're going to hear, well, you're wasting too much time. I mean, you got to find the conclusion. Well, one, you don't have to find the conclusion. And two, how about if in a clear majority of flaw arguments, you see the word thus? What's following the word thus? How about the word therefore? How about if you train yourself to issue spot conclusions in arguments? Do you think that might be helpful in law school?
Yes.
Yeah, you bet. In other words, you're no longer going to see just the words, right? You're going to read a sentence and you're going to say, that's a premise. Now, does a premise have to be in support of a conclusion? Can a premise be contrary to the conclusion? Yes, it can, right? Now, when a premise is contrary to a conclusion, what other word are you likely to see in some other premise? Say you've read the conclusion, right? And it says all stars are orange or something, right? And you read the first sentence, and the first sentence says, some experts say many stars are pink. But you've read the conclusion, right? And the conclusion is all stars are orange. Now you read the first sentence, and the first sentence says many experts say that stars are pink. What has to follow in that argument? However, but some preposition, right? Some language that says whatever was in that first premise, we're going to challenge. And how do you challenge? In the second premise, you may use the word however. You may use the word but. You may not use those words, but you will have to challenge that information if the conclusion is stars are orange. Do you see it? So you're reading in a fundamentally different way. You're not just reading the words, you're reading for the role in the argument. Yeah.
In flaw arguments, you said the conclusion first and then the premise following after is.
Yeah, I'm going to demonstrate it, yeah. Because what's going to happen is you're going to become, again, it's going to change the way you do everything. You're not just going to see 46 words. You're going to see every time you have a period, you're going to put a slash mark. And what the slash mark is doing is it's giving you the design of the argument. What you're reading is designed. What you're reading, right, is designed by people like me. And so people like me say, well, I'm going to put a premise in here. Maybe the first premise will support the conclusion. Maybe the second premise will cast doubt on the first premise. Maybe that's what I want to do. And then maybe the third premise will cast doubt on the second premise. That maybe that's what I wish to do. Well, then I'll find the words to do it. So what I'm saying is there's a design, and that's really what you're reading for. It doesn't matter what the subject matter is. It doesn't matter that you're reading about carcinogenic PCBs in oil. You know, it doesn't matter that you're reading about a guerrilla movement in Serbia. The content doesn't matter. It doesn't mean a damn thing. It matters what's the design and can you see the design. Don't you think that would help you in law? Yeah, you bet it would. It's really, test rocks. When you understand it, it's absolutely rocks. It's hard, it rocks. So yes, we're going to read the conclusion first and then get a load of this. How about this? How about if you became really skilled at identifying the conclusion? would it be helpful if you had, say, 2 questions on your test which asked you to identify the main conclusion of the argument? You're going to get that. Somewhere on your test that you take, right? You're going to get probably 2 questions. The form of the question will be, what is the main conclusion of this argument? What is the main idea of this argument? If you're able to identify that, do you have to read all of this other stuff? Or is it possible you could just look at the conclusion and say, that's the answer? Yeah, you can just pick it out. You can just pick it out. I mean, it depends on the way the question is framed, but people do way too much analysis on the LSAT. Part of the things they're testing for is you have to be able to separate the wheat from the chaff. You have to be able to separate what is material information from what is immaterial information. And an awful lot of this test is immaterial. So you're just reading and you're reading and you're reading, and the poor bastard sitting next to you has been inculcated in the process of elimination. That's great. And if you use the process of elimination, doesn't that require you to read every word on the test? And if you read every word on the test, what will you run out of? Time. And is that how you want to learn to reason? Do you want to learn to reason in a way to avoid being able to draw an appropriate conclusion? Or would you prefer to learn to reason in a way that your mind identifies the conclusion? Again, it's nuts. The process of elimination, when used for the test, for the whole test, eliminates you from one thing, and that is law school contention. It's diseased. I'm not saying it doesn't apply from, question to question. Sure it does. But as a mainstay of anybody's strategy, it's nuts. It's nuts. The test is designed to defeat that person. You want to be lawyers. That's not how we do it. So what you're going to do, and the assignment is going to be to do flaw questions, and you're going to give me a list. So first thing you're going to do is you're going to go through the volume of exams that you have in the logical reasoning section. So there will be 20 logical reasoning sections, 2 in each exam. You're going to create a spreadsheet. The spreadsheet you can just do by page, that's why I don't have an exam, so I can't do it by page. But if I were to direct you to this, I believe, is exam 52. It may not look that way to you, but that should be the first exam in your book. So if you were to turn I'm looking at section 1. Again, my pagination is not your pagination. If you look at section 1 in exam 52, which should be the first, it is the first exam. Does everybody see that question number 1 asks which of the following most accurately expresses the conclusion drawn? Are we all on the same song sheet? You see it?
Yeah.
Now, if you knew where a conclusion was in the argument, wouldn't that look inviting? Yes. And you will. Would it be fair to say that question number 2 appears to ask us for a flaw? Do you guys see it? Yeah. So let's take a shot at that. So the first thing you're going to do is you're going to run through this entire volume. Again, you're going to get another volume of exams. In other words, the volume of exams you have now is exam 52 through 61. What you're going to get in about 4 weeks, you're going to get exams 61 through 72. Capiche?
Capiche.
And the purpose of the book you have here is to be a source document. I don't want you to try to get anything right on your own. Do you hear me?
Yes.
This is not about getting stuff right on your own. When we get to exams 62 through 71, what are you going to have to do?
Get them on your own.
Yeah, get them on your own. But you've got to change the way you read. Just please trust me, because it's counterintuitive. It's not what you do in college. It's just not. So here, I'll demonstrate. You got the first part of this assignment, right? All I want you to do is, all you go here is you're going to send me a spreadsheet. What page is it in your volume?
8.
I'm sorry?
8.
8. So you'll have page 8, question number 2. Now, when you put page 8, question number 2, doesn't that tell me that you knew that was an actual flaw question? And if there's a problem, I'll pick it up. Capiche? Meaning if you're identifying questions that are not flaw questions, doesn't that give us the earliest possible opportunity to correct?
Yes.
Talk to me.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
You want us to go to the logical reasoning section and find the flawed questions?
Yes. And they're all here. In other words, every flaw question is going to use this language. Now, maybe they have some other synonym, you know, as opposed to error, it may say erroneous. Who cares? The same thing, right?
It's in this one section, right, or it's in the entire book?
Every logical reasoning section in that volume, which are 20 logical reasoning sections, right? But do you understand what I'm giving you, and do you understand why I'm giving it to you? Talk to me.
You don't want us to do it, you just want us to point it out.
For now, yes. First things first. In other words, first I want you to point it out so that we both know that you're correctly identifying flaw questions. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Because I get these back, and there will be people, there have been people, who will be identifying weakening questions as flaw questions. But if you apply the strategy that I'm using for flaw questions to different types of questions, it may not work. Capiche?
Capiche.
So, let's look at what I want you to do, the question number 2. Slash mark after every period from now on for the rest of your life. When I brief cases, that's what I do. Every time I see a period, there's a slash mark. I'm breaking it down, right? So I have a slash mark after the word not, a slash mark after the word insomnia, and then what word do I see?
So.
Where's the conclusion?
Last sentence.
With the word so. Now again, when you're looking for conclusion, when they want you to identify a conclusion, in a million years you don't do this. Because when they want you to identify a conclusion, they're not going to announce it. They want you to be lawyers, right? But here, they're not looking for a conclusion. They're looking for a flaw, right? Okay, so you read the conclusion first. When it jumps, now if it doesn't jump out at you, read the argument in the order it's presented, but read for the conclusion. But the word so is the conclusion. So, it is very likely that napping tends to cause insomnia. Everybody got it? And that is what?
The conclusion.
And the conclusion is what?
Flaw.
Wrong! Stupid. Right? It's wrong. This is flawed, right? So I have the witnesses stand. The witness is going to say to me, napping causes what?
Insomnia.
So does everybody get napping on the left and insomnia on the right?
Yes.
Anybody lost yet?
No.
Now stop. Isn't it fair to say napping does not cause insomnia? Or the case has not been made.
Yes.
Okay, well now let me ask you this. Is it possible that people who suffer from insomnia have to nap a lot?
Yes, it's possible.
Oh. Wouldn't that be, not to bring up what we started this with, but wouldn't that be assigning to a particular effect that which did not cause it?
Yes.
Wouldn't that be a flaw?
Yes.
How about if I say to you they have to test the same type of flaws? There's an inventory, a limited inventory of flawed reasoning, right? So do you guys get, just by looking at this, that you've told me it's wrong? The first thing that comes to my mind is, well, two things come to my mind. Couldn't it be the case that you have to nap because you have insomnia? Couldn't it? You want to say no? Could it be the case that because you have insomnia, you need to take a bunch of naps? Could it be the case that because you take a bunch of naps, you can't sleep at night? Could it be the case? Couldn't either be the case. But is that argument in the form that either could be the case? That argument is not in that form. That argument says, if you nap a lot, you're going to get what?
Insomnia.
It doesn't say, well, on the other hand, Maybe the reason you are napping a lot is because you don't sleep at night. Capiche? It's cause and effect. And there's no way to know which is which. But they present it to you in the form, you read napping and insomnia, right? Because you have read it that way, what comes first? Nap. Do you get it? In other words, first you read napping, and then you read insomnia. So what forms in your mind is napping must cause insomnia, because that's the way you just read it. Welcome to the LSAT. What I read is that this is flawed. So napping does not cause insomnia, which means one of two things. It means insomnia may cause napping, or neither of them cause the other, they're just correlated. So when's the last time you've had a robust conversation about the difference between correlation and cause and effect?
Couldn't say I have.
No, thankfully. You will now, though. Because you're being tested on information that's unfamiliar. Do you get it? You want to go to law school. Don't you get it? You're going to come in here and you're going to feel like, my God, I'm so stupid. And you're not. But you're going to feel that way because the material is hard. And you're going to go into the gym. And the muscle you're going to work out is your brain. Yes.
What would be the answer?
What would what?
What would be the answer?
Well, I don't know yet. But my mind has formed that two possible flaws just by looking at the conclusion. I haven't read any of the evidence, right? First is, it's possible that insomnia causes napping. That would be one possible answer. Second possible answer is that the argument shows me a correlation, a relationship between the two, but not causation. So that's the work you do initially. Now I'm going to read the premises. The first premise here is that we have a study, so we're talking about a study. A study of 436 university students found that those who took short naps throughout the day suffered from insomnia more frequently than others. Okay, so it's an observation. You take naps, you suffer from insomnia. But isn't it possible that the reason you take naps is because you already had the insomnia? Not that the naps caused the insomnia, but isn't it possible that you couldn't sleep at night because you had insomnia, so what do? You take a bunch of naps. Next premise. Moreover, people who work on commercial fishing vessels often have irregular sleep patterns that include frequent napping, and they also suffer from insomnia. Okay, which came first? Did the napping come first and then the insomnia result from that? Or did the insomnia come first and then the napping is a result of that? Nothing's been clarified to me. So I have two premises, right? A university study that says there's this relationship, right, between napping and insomnia. Then I have a second premise, and that's the fishing vessel, and there I am again, the relationship between napping and insomnia, and now I have the conclusion, which flows from those two premises, that napping causes insomnia. And the flaw is, you have not shown me that insomnia doesn't cause napping. Do you guys see it?
Yes.
Would you agree with me this is different from college? And do you get there's no memorization? And we are now over 5 hours, right? So think about what's being required of you as you sit here now. Right? Now, the answer's formed in my mind. So as I look at the 5 choices, now I want you to look at the 5 choices with that conversation and see if there's an answer choice that mimics what your mind produced. Anybody?
D.
Did you say D? For Drusus? You're going to become familiar with Roman names to reflect my age. I don't understand why we no longer name our children Caligula,
How is the reaction?
Drusus, Germanicus, the noble names, Brutus. So I'm repeating, did you say D for Drusus?
I did.
You did. How does D for Drusus look to the rest of you?
Wonderful.
Did D for Drusus reflect what your mind produced?
Yes.
That's how you take the test. There are no surprises. If you can do that, in that case, would you not have given your client valid advice? Right? If you had said to your client, choose D, and your client had asked you to explain why to choose D, could you not have done it?
Yes.
Yes.
The people who create this test are going through this process. There are no tricks, there are no shortcuts. There are no games. This is deadly serious stuff intended to come up with some sense that you will reach valid conclusions when provided with evidence. Yes?
Why couldn't it be B?
That's what I had.
Well, now let's see.
Okay.
We'll find out. But do you receive D? Now D says, fails to consider the possibility that frequent daytime napping is in effect rather than a cause of insomnia. Isn't that what we said?
Yes.
Okay. So you want to take that, say, all right, I got it. Now with that, let me go look at B. And B says, it presumes. Now, what does the word presume mean?
System.
Hmm? You got to yell at me.
Assume.
Presume means assumes. So let's see. Does the argument assume that all instances of insomnia have the same cause? Does it assume that? I don't think it assumes that. This argument is saying that, well, if I take the argument at its face value, it's saying that napping is caused by insomnia. Is that correct? Does it say there's no other cause? No, it doesn't assume that. It doesn't say. B would require that every insomniac suffer insomnia from a single cause. That's not what this argument says. This argument says that if you see somebody napping a lot, that's because, well, let me get it. If you see somebody napping a lot, the napping is the cause of insomnia. That doesn't mean it's the only cause of insomnia. There could be other causes of insomnia, right? But napping, if you see somebody, according to the flawed argument, if you see somebody napping, well, that person is likely to have insomnia. That is not the same statement as saying that everybody on the planet who has insomnia has the insomnia caused by napping. Couldn't it be caused by stress? Couldn't it be caused by some internal condition? So that's not an assumption required for the argument's validity. Okay, so a little bit of progress. Do you get that I need you to go slow? That's really what this is all about. So please listen to me. You're going to send me the spreadsheet with the flaw questions on it. I'm going to send you what?
The answer key.
The what?
Correct answers.
Well, not the, well, I'm going to send you my flaw questions. Now, I don't know if they're correct. And you'll want to check, because otherwise you would be relying on a sovereign. Do you understand that if you take my work and you then excuse yourself from the obligation of checking it, aren't you now relying on the sovereign?
Yes.
Does that sound like something I would advise?
No.
Might I advise questioning the sovereign?
Yes.
Yes.
I might actually advise insulting the sovereign. But certainly question. So, you'll do that. I want you to use this process. Part of this process, slash marks are essential. Try to find the conclusion. There is no time constraint. You with me? You're briefing. You understand your briefing. No time constraint. You brief and you break this down and you say, okay, what role in the argument are these words playing? Are they premises? Are they supporting? Are they in derogation? You slow down, right? But first, conclusion. You're going to find as you do the flaw questions, probably a super majority of them, it's right there. If somebody recommends something, what did they just give you? What role in the argument? If I say I recommend Alexa, I gave you the conclusion. Capiche? So when you see recommend, what do you got? The conclusion. If I say something is the best, what did I just give you? Conclusion. Time.
Are we doing the questions?
Well, that's yes, but not until you get the spreadsheet back from me. All right, so the first thing is you're going to identify these are the questions we will do, which again allows me to say you're on the right track. All right, it also forces you to read through every question on the test. Because to get all the flaw questions, don't you have to read all the conclusion questions? Don't you have to read all the other questions to do it? Doesn't that make you more familiar with the test? Would you prefer to be more familiar or less familiar with the most important test you'll take in your life? Yeah. So the technique will be read the conclusion, right? This is after you've got my sheet back. You're going to read the conclusion, you're going to throw your head back, and you're going to remind yourself it's wrong. Capiche?
Capiche.
Which now guides the way you read the supporting evidence. Because the supporting evidence can't get the job done. So you don't resist the evidence, you accept the evidence, right? When you are done reading the evidence, you with me? You've read the conclusion. Maybe there are two other sentences, right? You read the two other sentences and you throw your head back. And you say, okay, I'm going to try to put in words what the nature of the flaw is. Yes?
Yes.
You take as much time as that requires. Now, after you do that, you're going to go directly to the credited answer. You with me? You are not going to try to get it right on your own. Just do what I say. You're going to, you can either circle the answers in advance, right? Or you can simply go question by question. And then you're doing a flaw, I read the conclusion, I see. So like in this one we just did, right? I'd read the conclusion, I'd say, all right, I see left and right. Just look for left and right? Napping and insomnia. And stop and say, but that's wrong. Why might it be wrong? Might be mixing up cause and effect. On your test, you're going to be presented with cause and effect. There's no escaping it. None. Zero. So would you prefer to be prepared for it or not? It's there. The test never changes. Now, you're going to I'd look at those two premises, right? And I'd say, all right, this first one's a study, but the study's not giving me anything more than the conclusion gave me, right? Study's saying, it looks like this guy's saying, first you nap and then you get insomnia. All right. And the second premise, all right, these guys are out on a fishing boat, right? It appears to be that they're saying the guys nap and then they get insomnia. But each of those two examples simply repeats the flaw in the conclusion, which is saying it doesn't make it so, right? So I would throw my head back and I'd say, okay, I think the answer here has to do either with correlation or with insomnia may cause napping. Now, I would go to the back, the answer there is D, right? You circle the answer D. You now read answer D. Because what answer D is the trained mind. What did the trained mind, what flaw did the trained mind place in there, right? And as you do this, over the course of this volume, your mind is going to get closer and closer and closer to the mind that created this test. How cool is that? You'll be producing the outcomes on your own, where you have the ability to do it, which will be quite a few places. Do you see it? So I know it's counterintuitive. I know you want to try to get it right, but the devil with trying to get it right is you dig a rat hole. You see, by trying to get it right, you're going to pick B, right? And now you're in a rat hole because you're emotionally invested in B. You want to believe B is right because your mind produced B. So now I have to dig you out of the rat hole, right? I've got to take you out emotionally and intellectually from a place you're not supposed to be. And it takes you off the track. So what you do is you read D first, then only, right? You read D. And you stay there until it makes sense. Then, and only then, do you go to A and B and C and E with the context and the gravitas of saying, I got this one right, I know it now, I got it. That's going to give you the perspective you need to understand. Does it make sense?
Yes.
Is it convenient?
Very.
Well, is it time consuming?
Yes.
It all depends on what the word convenient means. I was going to say no, but in the context of how many tricks have I shown you? How many shortcuts am I giving you?
0.
How much time do you think we're going to spend on logic games next week?
A lot.
You dog. So do you guys see it? And so, does anybody have any questions? Because you'll get, I'll have all this in writing as well. So when I send you, when you send me your spreadsheet, right? I'll send you my spreadsheet, and what I just said will be written, meaning how to proceed, right? Please, 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 don't try to get these right on your own. We have a whole nother volume, and you need to train your mind. You need to become sensitive to what you're looking for, because it's not required of you anyplace else. So does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay. So you'll have now, I have a bunch of interest here for Peter, so I will follow up with all of you. I have everybody's email address so I can get a hold of you. Now, easy with the nonverbal. Well, you're verbal, but you're always verbal. Okay. So next week, I'll do the dopey stuff. Next week, I'll give you the payment option forms. So if you're going to take the class, that next week you should have that first check. Does anyone have any questions before we? Well, then go away. Have a wonderful week. Thank you for being here. Go away.
Don't forget to send me that,